Let me set up my computer here, get everything together. All right, let's see. I think there's a lag in the system. What is going on? My very first comment from Balterium. What is going on? Congratulations, you're the first comment on the live stream. Caught it in the first minute. What's up, Clint Winton? What's up, William? Precise 4. What is going on? Yeah, I was wondering if a lot of people are actually going to join this because it's the weekend and it's really nice outside. At least it is here in Colorado. So I was wondering if I get a lot of people joining on this one. What is up, Grim Reaper? Juan, Balterium, got a cine. Nice. Very nice. Mike's Aquatics and Things. What is going on? Karashia, what is up? Ileana, thank you for being a member. I see it in your comment there. That's pretty awesome. I can actually see all the channel, the people that are members of this channel. They kind of show up here in the chat. Julian North asks, what happened to Lucky? I actually sold Lucky. So Lucky was, it was actually a snake that I hatched out kind of really weird. I had one snake that I didn't think was going to lay any eggs at all. It was my meanest bumblebee. I called her Chomper, and I actually bred her with another snake and produced Lucky. Out of the whole clutch, we only had one boob egg, and that one actually hatched out Lucky, and that thing was pretty awesome. It was actually an all-white snake with a bright yellow head. It was a spider, pied, pastel, yellow belly, 100% head albino. And it was like the smallest little hatchling that I'd ever seen. And it started eating as soon as it hatched out, which is pretty amazing since it was really super small. And it was eating every single week, a couple times a week. And someone offered to buy Lucky, and I ended up selling Lucky to some lucky guy. I was kind of on the fence whether I should keep that one or not. It was a pretty awesome combination of genes in that one. All right, so Earl says, do bamboo ball pythons, when combined with other blue-eyed Lucies, get duck billing or bug eyes or small eyes? Not that I've seen as far as the bigger eyes or the smaller eyes on your bamboo combinations. Although with any blue-eyed leucistic, you can have a little bug eyes in some of them. I haven't really seen that with bamboos. So it'd be kind of interesting to go through all the bamboo blue-eyed leucistics and see if there's any misshapen eyes, but not that really kind of sticks out as far as I can remember with the bamboo. Mike's Aquatics and Things. Chris, so happy to catch you live. Yes. We'll see how well we do today, because it's kind of like where the weekend is just kind of breaking, all the snow is melting, everyone's out and about today. Maybe it'll pick up a little bit later on once the sun starts going down. Michael says, hello from North Carolina. What is up? Yeah, it's gorgeous out in New York. Let's see. Enjoying a cigar. All right. Yeah, I don't smoke cigars, but I do like the smell of a really good cigar. I've actually seen the UPS guy. Every now and then he'll drive up and deliver a package, and he'll be smoking a cigar in his truck. And for some reason, I don't know what he's smoking, but that cigar smells so good, which is pretty crazy. I don't think I'd ever start smoking cigars, though. NAD, hey man, loving the channel, boss. The crown agrees. All right, thank you. Hey, we got our first super chat. Earl Austin, thank you very much for the super chat. All right, let's see. Mike's Aquatics and Things. Just got my first snake ever Wednesday. Wow, first snake. That's pretty awesome. A baby pastel Enchi. That's pretty awesome. Those are two good genes. Works pretty much well, pretty good with almost every other gene, pastel and Enchi. Voodoo Exotics, what's going on? I have a question. Let's see. Oh no. So you actually got a replacement snake from a snake that was shipped with the prolapse, and you got another one covered in mites. That is pretty bad. Yeah, I'd probably give that seller a bad review over on Morph Market if you have two bad snakes in a row. That is unbelievable. Yeah, people shouldn't be sending snakes that have mites or any kind of a problem like that. Yeah, Julie North. Yeah, I really wanted you to keep him. Yeah, I was thinking about keeping Lucky. It would have been a pretty awesome combination. But yeah, pretty much in my collection here, I only hold back two ball pythons every year is pretty much what I'm going to do. So as a matter of fact, last year I had like 12 of them picked out. I was like, all right, I'm going to hold back all 12 of these hatchlings. And then of course you get to the next year, and that's the problem. If you hold back a whole bunch of stuff, you get to the next year and you don't have any more rack space for the cool stuff that hatches out every single year. Michael Skaggs, Chris, how long is the live going to last? This time I'm thinking 3 hours, if we could go 3 hours. I've been doing 3 hours Saturday, 3 hours on Sunday, and it's been working pretty good. Really depends on if my voice can hold up, which I think it can today. So I think we can do 3 hours. Let's see. Kiko Tapia, hello from South Texas. Wow, way down in South Texas. All right, Voodoo Exotics, what are some suggestions to get rid of mites? I washed with Dawn, soaked all 12 in the quarantine rack for 10 minutes, then olive oil. So yeah, that's actually what I would start with, is the olive oil for the mites. You can actually go with the reptile spray. I think I can't remember who actually makes that, but it's called reptile spray. Comes in you can actually buy it a gallon at a time. You probably don't need a gallon. I actually bought, when I had mites a long time ago, I bought a whole gallon of it. Let me tell you, I probably will never use that whole gallon. But kind of the cool thing about the reptile spray is you can take all the snakes out of the enclosures and spray down all the decorations and everything with that reptile spray, and then put everything back and give them fresh water. And that'll kill the mites and the eggs on contact. When I had mites, I replaced all my substrate with paper towels, and then went through, changed all the paper towels, sprayed everything down with the reptile spray every single day. It was a lot of work, and I finally got rid of them. But I didn't use the olive oil. That's probably what I should have used in conjunction with the reptile spray. Let's see. Yeah, the owner of Lucky comes in chat and gives updates from time to time. Yeah, so I was actually talking about Lucky on another live stream, and someone chimed in and said they actually bought him and gave an update on Lucky. Still doing good. There was a little tiny, probably the smallest hatchling that I've ever sold in my collection. It was super small. What kind of music do you like? Good question. As a matter of fact, I actually have a playlist that if you actually go over to my channel and click on playlist, there's actually a playlist called My Favorites, and I just drop one song from kind of my favorite song of the week, and I keep kind of changing it out. Sometimes it'll be like a rap song, sometimes it'll be rock, sometimes it'll be like bluegrass or something like that. Every time I kind of hear a really interesting, unique song, I kind of drop it over in that playlist. I pretty much like anything across the board. I like a lot of death metal and like Aerosmith, AC/DC, Marilyn Manson, stuff like that. I like pretty much a whole broad spectrum of different musics. Matthew Christopher, I made it. Congratulations. Greetings from Scotland. Wow. Alba Morse. Awesome. All the way from Scotland. That's kind of crazy. Let's see. All right, so Chad W4. Hi, I've had some snakes paired for 3 days. Haven't seen any locks. female looks like she may be going into shed. Will that affect the breeding? So I've actually paired up the males and the females when one or the other was breeding. And believe it or not, even when when they're shedding, and believe it or not, even when they're shedding, they'll still breed and they'll still lock, which is pretty amazing. Probably what I would do is I would pair them up, and then I would probably wait until that one completely sheds out, and then maybe give it an extra few days after that, keep them together a little bit longer to make sure after the shed that they lock up. But I've actually seen quite a few when I pair them up. If one of them's shedding, even if it's in a really deep blue, a lot of times they'll lock really well, which is pretty surprising. What is prolapse? So prolapse is when the inside of the snake comes out through the vent on the bottom of the snake, and it can be life-threatening in some cases. And sometimes you actually get a veterinarian to kind of push it back in, and sometimes it'll keep popping out, and it's kind of like I'm not sure exactly what causes the prolapse, but it's like the intestines or something actually come out of the snake, which is a pretty bad condition. Let's see. Chad W4. You are my inspiration to get better morphs in South Africa. Yes. Yeah, I'm actually surprised there's not a lot more in South Africa. As a matter of fact, I've actually seen there's one breeder in South Africa that had a lot of really awesome stuff. I just kind of randomly saw a YouTube video about it a couple of years ago. I think he actually had what was it, a lavender albino clown, which was the Grail. I think that was the first time I saw the Grail was a breeder over in South Africa, probably 8 years ago or something, when that video was actually made. Let's see. Hello from Washington, D.C. What is up? What is the time when you retire from breeding your snakes? You mean, when am I going to retire? I'll probably never retire from breeding snakes. I'll probably always breed a couple snakes here and there. I might downsize my collection as I get older and older. But if you're talking about ending the breeding season, as far as pairing, I actually stopped pairing up my males and my females mid-March is when I stopped pairing them up. But yeah, I'm not sure if it looks like it's looks like you're talking about retirement from breeding as far as, retiring from the hobby. I don't know if I'm actually going to fully retire. I'm thinking about doing mostly YouTube with a little bit of snakes on the side. Probably won't really expand my collection into like a full-time snake breeding operation. I'll probably focus mainly on YouTube. Christina, hello, what is going on? All right. Matthew Christopher, have you heard of the Heat Pro panels? They're 1,000 times safer and higher quality than Reptile Basics. Interesting. I haven't heard of the Heat Pro. Let's see. Voodoo Exotics males are the one that won't breed while shedding. Females will. Pretty strange. So I've actually seen Bobby breed. So Bobby's the snake I have around my neck here. This is Bobby, my bamboo ball python, and he was in a really deep shed quite a few times, and he bred a lot of females when he was deep in shed. Of course, he's been pretty much my best breeder. He'd lock for days with those females. So he's kind of an exception, but males can definitely lock when they're in a full shed. All right, Chris Godfrey. So I just paired for the first time. We'll see if she takes about long before I can expect to see eggs. Yeah, so so I actually started pairing in October the 15th. This is when I started pairing up all my snakes, and I still haven't seen any eggs yet. So it's October, November, December, January, February, March, middle of March. So it's actually the beginning of April now. So it's almost 6 months since I started pairing my snakes, which is kind of crazy, and no eggs yet with 23 females. So it can take quite a long time before you can get eggs. Heat Pro will not sell you a heat panel without knowing the material, species, vent sizes, location, and room ambient temperatures. That's kind of interesting. Kind of a double-edged sword because a lot of times when you're buying when you're buying stuff, you don't want a lot of stuff, kind of like strings attached. I've actually seen, some people like selling puppies, and this absolutely drives me crazy. You're actually trying to buy a puppy, and they want to know, if you have experience with puppies. They want to come and see your house and your setup and all that. And you're like, that's too much work. Just forget it. I'll get a puppy from someone else. Sometimes it could be a little problematic asking for a lot of stuff from your customers, but I can see the benefit where it'll actually protect the hobby as far as, kind of dialing in everything for every single thing that they sell. Let's see. Is it possible for Ball Python to reach full size before 3 years? So I've actually had one female, my female clown, actually laid eggs right after 2 years old. So they definitely can lay eggs at 2 years old. And I've tried to breed some other ones at 2 years old, and sometimes it won't take at 2 years. So I'd say if you're breeding females, pretty much 3 years is a safe bet for the average. Juan Wilson, how do I go about buying one of your snakes? Do you ship? Yeah, so right now I actually don't have any snakes for sale. I just have, I do have my Morph Market account over there. You can actually go over there and look at the stuff that I've sold already, but you really can't see the stuff that I have for sale because I don't have anything for sale. So essentially what you do is you go over to morphmarket.com, and then if you see something for sale, you can just message me over there. They actually have kind of like an email system that's just for Morph Market only, and then you can kind of communicate back and forth that way. And I do ship pretty much anywhere in the United States as far as that is. And the shipping, I'd say, is anywhere from probably about $40 all the way up to about $70 or $75, depending on how far you're actually shipping. Anthony Heft, what is going on? Hi, everyone. All right, let's see. Hi, I have a Ball Python I bought from another owner as a normal. How can I send you a picture of him? Just want your opinion on them. So yeah, so probably the best thing to do is if you want any of your snakes identified, probably the best thing to do is take like a short video, and you should actually take like a video of the top of the snake and the bottom of the snake, maybe a close-up of the head and the neck and everything, to kind of get like an overall, like a 360 view of the entire snake. And then you can upload it to YouTube and then just put a link under any of my videos and say, hey, can you help me identify this snake? And I'll actually click on the link and go over there and check it out. That's probably the best way. All right, let's see. Miss Bianca Barnes, about how long does it take a ball python to gain weight? She's a rescue and is so thin that all her ribs and backbone are plain as day. She's getting stronger. I've had them since February 20th. Yeah, so yes. So if you have a snake that's really super skinny like that, depends on how big it is. What I would actually do is I would feed that snake probably 2 times a week. If it's really super small, like a hatchling, I would probably do like, maybe 2 to 3 times a week. You don't want to do 3 times a week if they're too close together. Sometimes you can risk regurgitation. But if you did like, you feed 1 day and then maybe skip 2 or 3 days and then feed again, really increase the amount of food to get the body weight back up to size on that snake. And if they get a little bit picky, sometimes you can actually switch to like mice or something like that until you can get them back up to size. But yeah, if they're super skinny, I would definitely try something, even if you have to do like live mice or something like that to get them to eat. Sometimes they can be pretty picky eaters. Let's see. He's talking about Pro Panel, same company that makes Provenamide. Interesting. Let's see. That's strange because Bobby is the stud. I've always been told that males refuse to breed while in blue, but the females will breed while in blue. Huh. Yeah, so So Bobby has actually bred in blue. As a matter of fact, a lot of my snakes will still eat while they're in blue. A lot of people say that ball pythons really won't eat when they're in a deep shed, but I've found that they actually will eat when they're in a deep shed. All right, let's see. Heat Pro have specialists that tell you specifically which ones you need. Huh. Yeah, they don't want people harming the animals. That makes sense. All right, Jason, I recently purchased an ultrasound. Congratulations. How often do you ultrasound your females and track follicles? So personally, I don't really ultrasound that often. I maybe do like once or twice a year, maybe just for a YouTube video every now and then. It seems like when I do even YouTube videos about my ultrasound, it seems like I really don't have that many views on the ultrasound, just kind of as kind of more content for my YouTube channel. But I know a lot of people, well, they'll go through every single female and ultrasound them every single week, and they'll track all the follicles. And then a lot of people that are actually doing that, they'll pair up year round. So when the females reach a 10 millimeter follicle size, they'll start pairing up for the first time. And then again at 20 millimeters, again at 30, and then again at 45 millimeters, they'll really track the follicles. I've actually seen some people where they'll actually put the follicle size on the tubs for all the females. So you can just look up at your rack and you know right away what the follicle sizes are for all your females. And I don't really do that. I pretty much just pair up all my snakes on October the 15th and just keep cycling my males through for about 5 months. Let's see. Do I still breed mealworms? So no, I actually don't breed mealworms. Yeah, pretty much got rid of my mealworms, got rid of all my reptiles that eat crickets because I was just tired of buying crickets. So right now, the only thing I really breed is my dubia roaches, and those things multiply like crazy. I can't believe how fast dubia roaches, and it's pretty much like a hands-free operation. I feed those things to my chickens, my frog, my spider, and I sell some once in a while to the pet stores. I've actually sold some on the internet too. But let me tell you, those dubia roaches, those things, it's unbelievable. It's almost like exponential growth in that tank. Pretty amazing. All right, wish you could come to the reptile show in Minnesota. That would be pretty awesome. So I'm actually, as a matter of fact, I'm going to do a video tomorrow. I'm going to let people know that I'm going to do a reptile show in Pueblo here in 6 weeks. I'm going to go to the reptile show in Pueblo, Colorado, which would be pretty awesome. So maybe I can see you there if you're local and you can swing by the Pueblo show. Let's see, PZ. So the Democrats are trying to stop the snake hobby here in New York. Yeah, so New York seems like it's always been tough as far as ball pythons. There's a lot of places in New York where ball pythons are illegal, which is kind of crazy. So I've actually heard, I'm not sure if they passed it or not, but they were talking about not actually banning the shipping of any reptiles in and out of New York, which would be pretty devastating over there. Of course, you know, if you actually ban the shipment as far as like the, you know, like FedEx or the mail or something, you know, I'm sure there'd be companies popping up that would actually truck the reptiles in from the border and go into New York. But that's kind of crazy. I don't know why they're hitting New York so hard for like ball pythons, which is crazy. All right, Tom Long, how big do females need to be to put out big clutches? Good question. So I say if you're starting with a female about 1,500 grams in that area, you'd probably get a minimum clutch size of about 6 eggs. Usually about 6 eggs is your smallest clutch size. And when you get really big, up to, as a matter of fact, my biggest female is about 5,000 grams, and she'll lay like a 13 egg clutch, like pretty much double at 5,000 grams. So you can figure, you know, anywhere in between, almost, you can probably almost do like a sliding scale as far as how many grams that they actually weigh compared to how many eggs that they lay. So the bigger the female, the more eggs you'll actually get. I've actually seen some people in one YouTube video, I saw someone with a really big female put out 16 eggs in one clutch, which is kind of crazy. So those big females definitely pay off. Let's see. What do you know about the campfire morph? Never heard about the campfire morph. Don't know anything about it. Wow, I produce about 100,000 dubias a month. That's crazy. That is a lot of dubia roaches, and you could probably do it in a fairly small space too. So I just have a little, I think it's like a maybe like a 30-gallon tank or something like that. It's one of those little critter cages with the sliding top. And a lot of people say the dubia roaches have to be in the dark, and mine are just completely in the light, right? I just kind of threw them in there, and I like the clear sides because I can actually see in there to kind of see what's going on if they need food or water. And let me tell you, when you get a lot of roaches in there, they need water. As a matter of fact, they need water twice a day if you get a lot of roaches in there. So you have to really keep an eye on the water in those enclosures with your dubia roaches. But yeah, you can produce an incredible amount in a small space. Do they double or triple per month? Yeah, so so yeah, like I think like one dubia roach will have like all these tiny little babies, and it's just like exponential growth in there, especially if you keep leaving them in there and they just keep breeding and breeding. It's crazy. It seems like it's really slow growth at the beginning with the dubia roaches until you get a whole bunch of females to mature, and then all those females produce like 30 or 40 babies a piece, and then all those babies grow up. It's just unbelievable. It's crazy. Edgar Diaz, what's up? All right, Rebecca Lowe. How many years does it usually take for a female to get up to breeding size? Most people say with females, pretty much 2 years is the minimum. Although I have seen in some cases, I've actually heard maybe once or twice that people have had females that have reached 1,500 grams within the first year, which is pretty unusual, pretty crazy. You'd have to have a really aggressive feeding schedule to get a female up to 1,500 grams after a year. And it really depends on the size of the female as far as if it's ready to breed. So the problem is your female's too small and it develops eggs and it's not big enough to pass those eggs. It could potentially get egg bound and you could run into a life-threatening situation. It's kind of the same with any other animal. You really don't want to breed them too small because you could potentially run into problems with the actual laying of eggs or the birth of the offspring. Another super chat. Thank you, Daniel. All right, super chat question. Let's see. There's like a lag here. All right, a super chat question. If I breed a banana to a banana, does the male and female maker rule still apply? So that's a very good question because I haven't really bred two bananas together because I don't have any female bananas, and all my bananas and my coral glows are all males. So they're both male makers. So I won't get any females, which is kind of crazy. So I would imagine if you actually breed a male banana to a female banana, since the eggs are actually coming from the female, I would think that half the offspring would be males, half the offspring would be females. And you would probably get all female makers since all the eggs are coming from the female. That's what I assume that would actually work. I don't think you could actually get any male makers from that combination, even if the male that you actually bred to the female banana was a male maker. It gets really confusing with that, but it'd be kind of interesting to see someone who's actually bred two bananas together and see if they, especially looking at the offspring, to see if any of the banana offspring males come out as male makers. That would be pretty interesting, but I would assume they would all be female makers. All right, let's see. All right, dubia roaches. Each female will have about 15 to 30 babies. Then you'll need 5 months for them to start to produce. So yeah, so yeah, so dubia roaches in my colony, I have this whole mixed size of all these different dubia roaches. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. So Voodoo says my skin crawls just thinking about dubia roaches. I kind of had the same thing when I started with dubia roaches. I was just kind of freaked out when I was like picking up a dubia roach. I was always afraid it was going to bite me. But keep in mind, dubia roaches cannot bite you at all. They're completely harmless. It just kind of freaks you out a little bit picking up a really big bug that looks like it can bite you, which is kind of wild. And then dubia roaches, they actually have a really hard shell where they can kind of poke you a little bit on the side of the shell. As a matter of fact, when I'm feeding my Pac-Man frog, the dubia roaches, what I actually use is the ones that have just gone through the shed. They're actually completely white and really super soft, and it seems like it's a little bit easier for my frog to digest those. All right, Terrell Harrington. So I paid $10,000 for 2 females, around 800 grams. Super pastel asphalt het pine and an asphalt pine. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Asphalt, I'm not even sure that I've ever seen an asphalt pine, which is kind of wild. Yeah, that could be something brand new. So yeah, so probably the reason it's real expensive is because you probably have like a world's first or something that's extremely rare with the combination of the asphalt and the pine. But yeah, you can definitely so yeah, so it really depends on so super pastel, super asphalt. So you can actually make some asphalt pines. So you would actually have wait a minute. So you have a pastel super asphalt. So those are actually both females. So you'd actually need a male. But yeah, so probably the most money that you're actually spending for that is the super asphalt pastels. Those can be pretty expensive. And an asphalt pine. So yeah, so I don't know. It's always hard to say. Is that a good deal or not? $10,000 is an incredible amount of money for those. But I'd say you could probably easily make your money back on those if you're breeding to something else. All right, so Olivia Weber, how much is an estimate is the hobby of breeding ball pythons, and how do you convince someone who's afraid of snakes to let you breed them? So my family, they're pretty much grew up terrified of snakes, so they really don't come into the reptile room. I have a completely separate room, and I completely close it off from the rest of the house, and they never come in here, which is kind of interesting. Oh, let's see. So how much as an estimate is the hobby of breeding ball pythons? So it really depends on if you're talking about how much money that you would invest in breeding ball pythons. It can really vary from from just a few $100s all the way up to pretty much unlimited. You can spend tens of thousands of dollars in ball pythons. So what I would probably do starting out is I would probably buy like an ARS 7010 rack. I think they're about like $100 per level per tub, and you could get like say like 3 levels that you cost you about maybe $300-400, something like that. And then if you got 3 snakes, like 1 male and 2 females, I mean you could get into it for probably for even like another $300 or $400 for something like that. If you got like really low end males, and just to kind of start, like kickstart your operation, that's probably where I would start. So you're looking probably, like $700-800 to start minimum if you just wanted to breed a few snakes. Let's see. So yeah, my phobia, roaches and spiders. Yeah. Let's see. Big Serpent says, what's your favorite pinstripe morph? So my favorite pinstripe is, I actually have quite a few. So I really like the pinstripes with the bamboos. It makes a really kind of a silvery colored snake, especially if you work pastel into it. It can look like almost like a silvery metallic colored combination, especially when it ages and matures. It can really keep that silver color. Another one with my pinstripe that I really like is the combination of pinstripe and trick. Mix trick into pinstripe and you get a really jumbled up pinstripe, which is pretty crazy. If you've actually seen that combination, it's pretty awesome. Another one of my favorites with pinstripe is working it into the freeways. You actually mix it in with the asphalt and the yellow belly to make a pinstripe freeway. That is definitely one of my favorite combinations. Another one I really like is a combination of the confusion and the pinstripe. It really shatters the pattern, really keeps a really bright gold when you work it in with the confusion. Looks like a really bright gold pinstripe, but it really just explodes the pattern, which is pretty awesome. All right, Reggie Hardy, do you ship to Canada? I want to buy a ball python from you. So I've actually had quite a few people ask me if I ship to Canada, and I had one quote on the shipping, and just the shipping itself was anywhere from like $650 all the way to $800 to get across the border with all the regulations at the border and everything. So no, I haven't really shipped to Canada because I haven't really had anything that expensive that's worth spending that much money on shipping across lines like that. All right, let's see. I have a banana pinstripe lesser fire that looks like a highlighter. That's pretty awesome. Banana pinstripe lesser fire. That's an interesting combination. Outdoor living. I'm looking into mystics and phantoms to breed in my hobby. Do you think the mystic potion is better than the purple passion? So that's kind of interesting because if you actually look at the mystic versus the phantom, some people actually think it's the same gene, which is kind of interesting. And I think within each gene, as a matter of fact, I actually did a comparison video on the mystic versus the phantom, and a lot of people thought it was the same. I think there's a lot of variability in each line of each one. So what I'd probably do is I'd look at someone who's actually produced some purple passions or mystic potions, kind of look at the combinations that they've produced, and buy either a mystic or a phantom based on the visual appearance of some of their combinations, because it can be really variable from one to the other. Reggie, do you have any full-grown pieballs? I just have one female pie that she laid her very first clutch of eggs last year, and those eggs, it was kind of weird. They looked like really good eggs, like fertile eggs, and none of them developed. They were in my incubator for about a month and a half, and all of them molded. It was pretty crazy on those. Let's see. All right, I lost my place for a minute. Earth Central. Is it normal for balls to not want to eat when they're in shed? So the thing with ball pythons when they're in shed, essentially what it does is when they turn really gray, they really can't see anything. So I found when I'm feeding my ball pythons when they're in shed, a good trick is to put the rodent right up to the nose of the ball python. Almost put it like right on the nose or right in front of the nose, so they can get a really good smell of that rodent. Because a lot of times if you actually have it like an inch away from the nose, sometimes they can't even see it because they're really deep in blue. And I found if you put the rodent almost like sometimes right on the nose, touching the nose really gently, a lot of times even in deep blue, they'll actually grab that rodent. Let's see, what percentage of banana to banana produce a super banana? So yeah, so it would be 25% of the time you produce the super banana from breeding two bananas together. Let's see, Joseph Suggs. All of mine will eat in blue. Yeah, so sometimes they will. I'd say, usually I'll actually have some really good eaters that'll eat pretty much in blue and anytime. And I found sometimes they won't eat in blue, some of the ones that normally eat every single time. So I think you have probably fewer ball pythons that do eat less eat when they're in the shed, but a lot of them actually do. As a matter of fact, when I started out, everyone was like, don't feed your ball pythons when they're in shed. And I pretty much avoided it. And then I found out a couple years later that a lot of them actually will, but not as many as if they weren't in shed. So I think fewer of them do eat when they're in shed. All right, NY Slice. Do you know when a ball python won't have an appetite before you try feeding? So yeah, so here in my collection, essentially what I do is I have like anywhere from like 50, well, right now I actually have just a little over 40 snakes, which is pretty much the lowest I've had in a long time. Anywhere from 40 to like 150 snakes here in my collection. And what I'll do is I'll actually thaw out enough rodents that'll actually feed just a small portion of my ball python. So if a lot of them don't eat, I'll move to the next one and I don't end up wasting a lot of rodents at the end of the day. So if you actually, so for example, if I, thawed out like 40 rodents and tried to feed all my snakes all at once, I'd probably end up throwing half those rodents away, versus if I thawed out like 15 and then fed like, try to go through with those. And then say, for example, if like half my snakes ate those 15 and there were still a few that I didn't actually feed, the next day I would feed, I thought like 5 or 6 more, and then kind of go back and hit the ones that I didn't feed, and then maybe double up on the other ones that I've eaten. I found most of the times, if you actually go through and feed your snakes on one day and they actually will take a rodent, a lot of times the following day, if you have leftover rodents, they'll actually take a second rodent. So that's pretty much what I do through my collection. Let's see. Let's see. How much for one of them or not for sale? And love your videos. So yeah, so right now I don't have any ball pythons for sale. Yeah, pieball. Yeah, I was hoping last year to have some pied hatchlings, and that didn't turn out. So hopefully this year, as a matter of fact, this year I'm breeding my banana, which is 100% het pied to my female pied. So if she does lay eggs, hopefully I'll actually get about 50% pieds, and some of those will be banana pieds, or actually coroglow pieds, because he's a coroglow. Pretty much the same thing, the bananas and the coroglows. But that would be pretty awesome if I could get some pied hatchlings this year. And I'm thinking I'll have my first hatchlings for sale maybe in about 3 months or so, which would be pretty awesome. I only feed live, yeah. So I kind of keep going back and forth on the live versus the frozen thawed. As a matter of fact, right now I do mostly frozen thawed here in my collection, except for my hatchlings. I'll do some live mice on the hatchlings pretty much exclusively. But yeah, I got to the point where I found out that, it's a lot of your snakes will actually eat on a regular basis if you do live. But the problem is they kind of get stuck on live. And if you keep doing live and live and live, then they won't go back to frozen thawed. Sometimes they can get really picky. Yeah, so it's no problem since you have so many. So it seems like the more snakes that you have in your collection, the easier it is for feeding, versus, say, for example, if you just had like one ball python and you're thawing out a rat every single week to feed that ball python, a lot of times I'd say probably 50% of the time it's not going to eat, and then you'll end up throwing that away. And that is essentially why I got my reticulated pythons, to use up a lot of those kind of the leftover rodent for my snakes when I first started out. But it seems like, now with like 40 or more snakes, it's a lot easier to kind of balance the rodents with the snakes. All right, Ball Python's crypto and cryptids. Just tuning in after feeding my 1.5-year genetic stripe, pinstripe orange dream females. Awesome. All right. My boa never had an appetite problem, but the ball sometimes does, and I have to keep a smelly rodent around. Yeah. So that's kind of the downside of ball pythons is, with like the king snakes or something like that. As a matter of fact, probably the best eater that I've ever had was my corn snake. That thing would eat every single time, year after year, until it got like obese. The king snakes and the California king snakes was both of those had really good appetites, and they would eat every single time, which is completely different with ball pythons. A lot of times the ball pythons, I'd say probably, every 2 or 3 attempts to feeding your ball pythons, you'll get them to eat, which is kind of crazy. So if I actually feed my whole collection, I'd say on a good day when I'm going through like 50 snakes and most of them are eating, I'd say I'd maybe get like maybe about 35 of them to eat on a really good day if I'm feeding all my ball pythons. All right, Daniel, I'm breeding banana leopard to banana pinstripe lesser fire. Wow, that's pretty awesome. So you'll get super bananas, super banana leopard pinstripe lesser fires. Wow, that's a lot of genes. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, they get stuck on live. Yeah. So let's see. How much do you sell your regular pied balls? Because I wanted to breed my guy with a pied female. So I'm not exactly sure what the current market is on the pied. I think pretty much from what I'm used to seeing, it seems like everything's really increasing, but I'm thinking, pretty much the pieds are selling for around $300 just for a regular pied. Of course, that's what the blue-eyed leucistics used to sell for. Now they're up to like 600 or 700, which is kind of crazy. But I don't know. You'd have to actually look at the prices. Pretty much when I started like 6 years ago, the pieds, just a straight pied hatchling was selling for about $300 to about $350. It seems like it's been pretty solid over the last few years. It may have gone up with the whole, the pandemic and everything. Seems like the prices are increasing. Let's see. So if you warm it up, they don't know the difference. It's yeah. So so that is, yeah. So I used to think, yeah, if you warm up a rodent to the proper temperature, that a ball python won't know the difference between a frozen thawed and a live. And let me tell you, they absolutely, I don't know what it is about a live rodent. So as a matter of fact, my pied female was live only for probably the first 3 years. I'm finally converting it over to frozen thawed pretty much on a regular basis. But it was crazy because I would try everything with that frozen thawed. I'd actually heat it up to the right temperature. I'd take a tongs and I'd put it way in the back and kind of wiggle it around and everything. I could not get that thing to eat, time and time again, trying the frozen thawed over and over. And if I took a live rodent and I put it in there for 2 seconds, it knows the difference between live and frozen thawed, and it would instantly grab that live and eat it every single time versus, trying to do the frozen thawed thing. I don't know what it is with the live. They could definitely tell the difference. All right, let's see. Reggie, I want to start selling and breeding in my city. Nice. Let's see. How much should you feed a let's see. How much should you feed a ball python? Yeah, so it really depends on the size of the snake. So like with Bobby here, I offer every single week at least one time. And if that's so if you actually have a ball python that's been fasting for a long time, like months and months and months, and they start eating again, what I'll actually do is increase to feeding twice a week until it gets a little bit more food in the system. And then once it starts getting nice and plump and fat again, I'll actually go back to once a week. So what I do is I pretty much keep an eye on the body condition of the snake. If it starts looking really super plump and bloated, maybe I'll skip a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on the body condition. Use a heat gun. So yeah, so a lot of people, when they're doing rodents, thawing out the rodents, some people use a heat gun, some people will use a hair dryer on the rodents. And what I found pretty much works the best for me is I use one of those heat lamps that you put like on like baby chickens, like the big round industrial heat lamps. Works really good for the final heating of the rodent. What I do is I put all my rodents out on my table and I leave them for, a few hours if they're small, or maybe half the day if they're really big rodents, to get them to where they're pretty much all thawed out. And then I'll put them under the heat lamp for, I'd say, it really depends on, I actually put them under the heat lamp and just kind of keep feeling them to see if they're the right temperature. You can use a heat gun too to see if they're kind of the right temperature. Yeah, warm up the head too on the rodent. So that's kind of the trick. If the rodent has a cold head, sometimes it's weird. The ball pythons won't grab it if it has a cold head. As a matter of fact, I've seen some big breeders, what they'll actually do is they'll take a really big table and then they'll actually clamp on heat lamps all around the table when they're thawing out, like a whole table full of rodents, which is kind of crazy. Earth Central, my snake was slithering on my phone and almost blocked you. That's funny. All right, great videos always. We've all learned a lot from your videos. Many blessings to all. Thank you. Yes. Hopefully you'll actually learn something from my videos. I try to think of something new every time to put out so you guys can learn at least one new thing in every video. All right, Bobby, what are you doing? Alba Morphs, how many ball pythons do you have in your collection? Yeah, so right now I have 43 snakes, and 2 of them are reticulated pythons. So I actually have only 41 ball pythons, which is really a really low amount for me as far as what I normally have. I normally have about 50 here in my collection. And I kind of unloaded a lot of duplicates here lately. I had some, I kind of got carried away with some of the scaleless head stuff. I had so many scaleless head females. I think I had like 5 or 6 of them. I was like, I don't need this many scaleless heads. And I pretty much, as a matter of fact, I still have 3 scaleless head females. I'm thinking, really all I need is 2 to really focus on the scaleless head, because I really want to get some more pieds, want to get some more desert ghost combinations here in my collection. If these snakes will actually produce more pieds and desert ghosts, which would be pretty awesome. All right, let's see. I have another place in South Florida, and chameleons are invasive. Wow. I was wondering if it's worth it to catch for selling. So yeah, I would think, as a matter of fact, if you actually live in Florida, if you can, I don't know what the laws are, but I would think it would be really lucrative if you could actually catch a lot of this stuff in the wild, especially the invasive species like Burmese pythons. If you can catch them on, as a matter of fact, if you can actually get some eggs from the wild, some Burmese python eggs, and then captively hatch them, that would probably be, you'd have the least amount of parasites on something like that. And then you could probably ship them out and do really well shipping captive hatched Burmese pythons from Florida. I bet you could do really well with that. I don't know how much Burmese python hatchlings are selling for, but I bet you could get probably at least $100 a piece for them, with those Burmese. You could probably do pretty good. Of course, I don't know the laws on that. You'd have to double check the laws before you do something like that. But with chameleons, I would think you could do something similar as far as that's concerned. All right, I just bought a Super Mojave for $400 today to go with my Super Lesser. So yeah, so $400, that's a pretty good deal, actually. All right, let's see. Earth Central, they can probably smell the death on the dead rodent. So that's kind of interesting, because when I'm trying to feed most of the rodents that I'm actually trying to feed to that pied ball python, I've actually euthanized myself with CO2. So they're a fresh killed, which it's pretty much within like a minute or 2 of gassing them with the CO2. So I'll gas them with CO2, put them under the heat lamp, and I can guarantee you they don't smell any different than alive at that point. They've only been dead for like just minutes. And then I try to feed it to that, and let me tell you, they definitely can tell the difference between a fresh killed and alive. For some reason, they just go crazy. I don't know if it's the certain movement that they can detect on the live rodents, that they just seem to really eat them a lot better than the frozen thawed or the fresh killed, which is kind of crazy. Lesser Mojave will be the entire clutch. Yeah, so that's an awesome pairing. The Super Mojave crossed with the Super Lesser. You get a whole clutch of the ideal blue-eyed leucistics with a combination of the Lessers and the Mojave. That's pretty awesome. Let's see. Aren't pythons sensitive to movement like heartbeat? Yeah, so that's probably what it is. The heartbeat. Reggie Hardy, what's your cheapest ball pythons and your most expensive, and how long have you had them in your collection? So the cheapest ball python that I have in my collection was actually a free one that I got from Craigslist for free. I didn't even know if it was a male or a female, and it's just a normal ball python. Turns out it's a female that has laid quite a few clutches over the last few years. Definitely paid for the gas to go pick that thing up. And the most expensive that I actually paid for is probably my banana inchy clown male that I bought 2 years ago. I paid $1,500 for that snake, which is kind of crazy. Let's see, Daniel, I just assumed they use heat pits. Yeah, so there's something else that the ball pythons use besides the heat pits to determine if prey is worthy of eating. Blue-eyed leucistics are 700 now. I won't pay anything to produce them. So yeah, blue-eyed leucistics, for the longest time they were about 300, and now for some reason they're out. It seemed like 600, 700. It's interesting. A lot of people are selling them for like 400, and you'll find a lot of people still kind of the old mindset of the old pricing. Sometimes you can get a pretty good deal on them. Let's see. Why is the market so low on viper boas? I don't really know any other species besides ball pythons. So it's kind of interesting. You'll actually see certain snakes that are really expensive. Sometimes they're really cheap. And I don't know what really drives the prices on a lot of these. So for example, you can actually look at like the Australian, the black-headed python. They're super expensive, which is kind of interesting. Why are they so expensive and why are others so cheap? It's just kind of the normal price in the hobby, which is pretty wild. Let's see. Ernie Price, have you seen any ovulations? Yes. So I've seen probably, I don't really track my ovulations, but I've been going through every single tub every single day, and I've seen maybe about 12 ovulations here in my collections. Maybe more than that. As a matter of fact, almost maybe about 15 ovulations. I've been breeding this year. I'm pairing up 23 females, so it looks like I'll have a pretty good year. So if you figure about, even with 10 ovulations, if I have an average of 6 eggs per clutch, that's 60 hatchlings right there, which is pretty awesome. And most of my females will lay a lot more than that, so I'm thinking maybe anywhere from 80 to 100 eggs, maybe even more than that, maybe about 120 this year, based on what I'm seeing for the ovulation. So a lot of hatchlings coming up here, probably in anywhere from like 3 months to about 5 months down the road. Let's see. Yeah, I could do ultrasound. Yeah, so a lot of people are like diehard ultrasound guys, and at this point, it's so yeah, so it's kind of nice to see where you are in the breeding season using an ultrasound. But I found it doesn't really make a difference. I can spend a couple hours ultrasounding all my snakes, every couple of weeks or something like that. But a snake's going to lay eggs or it's not going to lay eggs. Doing the ultrasound can give you kind of a heads up, but it doesn't really, as far as the benefit, you don't really need an ultrasound. As far as sometimes it actually helps to kind of predict as far as when you can expect a ball python to lay eggs. Should I keep pairing my female? I don't know if she's gravid. So I pretty much stopped in the middle of March. I stopped pairing my males and my females. I would probably stop pairing right now if you want to kind of keep the whole cycle of your kind of your breeding season on par with everyone else. So you can pretty much breed year round. But I've actually seen, every now and then you'll see like a YouTube video in like November or December where someone says, hey, I actually have some ball python eggs from this female, which is kind of weird because it's like an off schedule compared to everyone else. Hey, looks like we got another channel membership. Thank you. Welcome, fan. All right, yeah. So if you actually become a channel member, you'll actually have the little icon next to every single comment that you post over on the right. I can see who the channel members are. And if you're wondering how to become a channel member, you can actually, under every single video, I have the little join button right under the video. People were wondering on the last live stream how to become a member. And if you become a member or support me over on Patreon, I'll actually put you on the end screen of every video. I kind of have like an end screen with all my current and past Patreon supporters and channel members. So I've had a lot of people, like, they'll donate on Patreon just, you know, for a couple months and then they'll stop. And here, years and years later, I'm still listing them on all my videos over on the end screens on the videos, which is kind of cool. All right, I want to do scaleless blue-eyed leucistic. Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. Yeah, so there's a lot of ways you can actually, I think it's kind of interesting with the scaleless. I think it was like really super popular. Everyone was going after the scaleless heads, and then it seemed like it kind of fell out of popularity, where not a lot of people are doing the scaleless, which is kind of an opportunity if you want to get into it, because a lot of people are not really focused on it. As a matter of fact, if you look at a lot of the big breeders, not many of them are producing a lot of scaleless, and a lot of them are not even doing any scaleless at all, which is a really big opportunity for the little guy trying to get in on a new project, which is pretty interesting. All right, Big Serpent, I want a Bobby, yes. So yeah, speaking of Bobby, we've been going for 1 hour and 7 seconds already. We've been going for an hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change Bobby for Bubble, and we'll bring Bobby out back at the end again. Pretty much an hour is the limit for one snake, and I want to give him a little bit of a break, although he's doing really good hanging out here. As a matter of fact, I haven't had him out for a couple days. So let's put Bobby back, and we'll pull out another Ball Python. We'll bring Bobby out at the end here. All right, Bobby. He's like, he wants to stay out, but I'll bring out another snake. I don't know how Bubble's doing here. All right, Bubble. So Bubble actually ate the last week of March, which is, I don't know if she's going to lay eggs eating so late in the season, but this is Bubble, my big female pinstripe. Pretty much my tamest snake. Bubble and Bobby are both my tamest snakes here in my collection. She'll probably just fall asleep on my shoulder and just kind of hang out. Close this tub up a little bit. All right, let's see. Matthew Christopher, I'm from Florida originally, and they consider Burmese and green iguanas an invasive species. People are actively killing them. I know I don't think it's really good to actually go in and kill the invasive species. I've seen a lot of YouTube channels where all they show is killing the iguanas, and that just seems wrong to me, to actually make a YouTube channel and a whole sport out of killing something, even if you consider it an invasive species, which is kind of crazy. All right, so let's see. I'm kind of behind on the questions. All right, let's see. It's actually a felony to reintroduce a chameleon if it's caught. Wow. And yes, there are Burmese, and they're typically nasty, being that they're wild and huge. Yeah, so that's the problem. If you actually go down there and you're thinking about like catching wild Burmese pythons and trying to resell them or keeping them as a pet, I've actually seen a lot of them will have a lot of ticks and a lot of parasites and stuff like that. That's why I was thinking, if you actually could find the Burmese eggs and then hatch the eggs, you could potentially get some hatchlings that don't have any parasites. I don't think the parasites can actually get inside of the eggs. Let's see. All right, so Joseph says, what projects are you most excited about currently? So probably the number one that I'm working on, that I'm really excited about, that I won't have any eggs for this year, is my triple hats. I actually have 1 male and 2 female triple hats that are het for albino, pied, and clowns. So when I breed those together, I'll get albinos, I'll get pieds, I'll get clowns, I'll get albino pieds, albino clowns, I will get clown pieds, and I'll get albino clown pieds, which is pretty amazing. from those normal looking snakes too, which is even more amazing. I can drive 20 minutes and find Burmese pythons. So that's pretty interesting. I thought it'd be kind of neat. You know what would be really neat, because they're almost making like a sport out of catching Burmese pythons. It would be interesting if someone came up with like a $10,000 reward or something like that for capturing the biggest Burmese python alive. Like, you know, kind of like they do with fishing. There's like a reward for catching the biggest lake trout or something like that. It'd be kind of interesting to do the same thing with Burmese pythons. Yeah, way too many to relook at. You know, I'm pretty much convinced that the Burmese python and the chameleon and all those invasive species, they're not really invasive anymore. I don't think you'll ever get rid of them. I think they're just a natural part of the environment anymore. Even with everything that they're doing, I don't think they can get rid of them. Let's see. All right, straight heated is a pied ball and a lavender albino, a dreamsicle. So yeah, so the dreamsicle is the lavender pied. Yeah, so the dreamsicle, yeah, so some people call those two a dreamsicle, other call it a lavender albino pied. So the lavender albino pied is just the individual genes, and then the dreamsicle is kind of like the slang name for that combination. All right, I'll be back, but I'm glad you went on live. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. There's only like 46 people on, which is kind of crazy, because normally at this time we'll have like 80 to 90 people on the live stream. And I think it's because it's a really nice day. It's kind of like the end of this, like the beginning of the spring, and everything's pretty much nice, and everyone's out and about, which is kind of crazy. I'll pay however much you want for Bobby. Well, I always thought, well, if I was going to sell Bobby, I might sell him for like $100,000 or something like that. It'd have to be something that's like, you know, can really make a difference. But I probably wouldn't sell Bobby even for that kind of money. All right, John, how many times should I pair my albino ball pythons for breeding? Once a week, then skip a week? How many times? So yeah, so a lot of people, as a matter of fact, when I first started in ball pythons, it seemed like I bred my snakes too much, because what I was actually doing is I was breeding for like 3 days, 3 or 4 days, and then I moved the male to another female for 3 or 4 days, and then I'll just give them a couple days off, and then just keep repeating over and over and over. And it seemed like I was pairing like 3 or 4 times a month on some of my females with my males. And let me tell you, you don't need to pair that much. Most people will say pretty much the minimum is once a month. You really only have to pair once a month your males and your females. I'd say pretty much, you know, if you wanted to increase it to kind of be on the safe side, I would probably do every other week. Just pair like maybe 3 or 4 days every other week and do it like that. But let me tell you, if you're actually taking a male, bringing it to multiple females, sometimes it can kind of be a crunch if you're doing it that way. So yeah, and I usually cycle my males through my females for about 5 months, cycling them through as far as the time that I actually pair them up. Let's see. I would join Patreon if we got first dibs on your snakes. Yeah, so there's like thousands of people that want to buy my snakes, and I don't produce that many snakes. As a matter of fact, my last snake actually had, I think it was like 5 or 6 bamboos, and I even marked them up quite a bit, and I posted them all on Morph Market, and they all sold like within 10 hours, which is crazy. So I might have to actually increase my prices or something, because there's so much of a demand, and it seems like as soon as I post them over there, they instantly sell. As a matter of fact, last year I was not even posting them. I was holding them back longer so I could make videos and kind of show them off, because if I post them all and then they're gone, I really don't have a lot of content for my videos as far as showing off hatchlings. So that's the other thing too. All right, Ernie Price, couple more clutches due around the same time your females should drop. Nice. So it's kind of interesting when you get into the breeding season. I was actually looking back at my schedule, and I actually had, in some years, I had my ball pythons lay eggs in the middle of March, like March 15th. And then you get like into the beginning of April and you're like getting a little bit nervous because you still don't have eggs. It's kind of interesting because you're waiting for all those eggs, and sometimes they're delayed quite a bit. And then you get towards the end of the year, and then your whole incubator's full of eggs, and then you feel a lot better. But right now it's kind of the transition. You're just in anticipation, waiting for all those eggs. All right, Reggie, I got a $650 pinstripe more from PetSmart for $120. Nice. Interesting. Yeah, so if it only has pinstripe in it, pinstripes, depending on the size of the pinstripe too. So usually pinstripes don't sell for that much unless it has other genes in the combination. Let's see. All right, let's see. NY Slice. If I want my female to breed without buying a male, what should the arrangement be if I find someone with a nice male? So that's a good question. So normally you'll actually take a male and keep pairing it with the female. First of all, I would make sure that if you get a male from someone else, that they don't have any diseases or anything else in their collection. That's probably the biggest thing. You have to really trust them. You're almost like blending your collections together at that point, because keep in mind, if you actually have a male, you're breeding with your female, usually you need to hold on to it for at least several months to keep breeding it back to your female. But yeah, you could probably do it if someone has a male that you could borrow. Robert Bailey, what is going on? Hey, Chris and Bobby. Bubble. Yeah, this is actually Bubble. This is Bubble. Daniel says it's 9 p.m. Wow, it is 7 p.m. here in Colorado. All right, let's see. All right, high class pythons. What's up, Chris? I just paired G's for the first time and he locked for 24 hours. She's going to ovulate soon. Nice. That is awesome. Congratulations. Let's see. It's 2 a.m. here. Most of us are in bed. Yeah, it's pretty funny. I get people from all over the world on these live streams. Sometimes they're like, completely different time zones. As a matter of fact, when I was doing those 12-hour live streams, I go to like midnight, and a lot of times at midnight, people will be like, good morning, because they're all waking up on the other side of the world, which is pretty wild. Rodley Santana, hey, how have you been? What's going on? It's a major holiday for millions. Let's see. Is today a holiday? What day is today? So is today a holiday? Rodney says, how's breeding going? Breeding's going good. So I stopped pairing my males and my females pretty much mid-March, and I've had probably about 15 of my females that look like they're ovulating. So it looks like it's going to be a pretty good year. I have an incubator going, got it all set up, got my egg boxes ready, just waiting for those eggs to drop. Pretty exciting. Punk Rocka, heading home from Idaho right now. Nice. Ernie Price, the first female to go this year, dropped February 22nd. Wow, that's super early. Wow, didn't start pairing till the middle of October. October, November, December, January, February. Wow, that's the quickest that I've ever seen. As a matter of fact, it could be. You have to kind of be careful, because if you start pairing up like in the middle of October and then they lay eggs like in December or January, it's possible that they could possibly have like retained sperm from a previous pairing the following year, especially if they didn't lay eggs. So you have to kind of keep an eye on that too. So that's the quickest that I've ever heard of, February 22nd. Although one year, I think I had my first clutch on March 15th, pairing in the middle of October. So that is super quick, which is pretty wild. Isaac says, what's the best way to get cheap racks? Good question. Yeah, pretty much the cheapest way is to build them yourself out of like plastic totes. As a matter of fact, if you look at a lot of the videos from the UK, it seems like it's really popular where people use like a locking lid plastic tote, and then they'll take like a kind of like a soldering iron and melt holes in the side for ventilation, and then put them on heat strips and like that. That's probably the cheapest way to actually build them yourself. But if you're looking for like a cheap used rack like the ones behind me, I'd say good luck. You know, a lot of these are, it's almost impossible to get. If you're looking for new ones, a lot of them are on waiting lists for months and months. You can't even get the new ones, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, so yeah, don't have much free time. Yeah. If your dinker ends up being a gene, do you have any name ideas for it? Good question, Claude1234. Not really. I'm not sure if it's going to be a gene or not. So I actually have, as a matter of fact, I actually took my Coral Glow 100% het pied, I bred it to a normal, and I produced this interesting looking normal snake that has a really crazy pattern on it that I just kind of had as a dinker project. And I'm actually breeding that female dinker for the first time this year back to that Coral Glow male to see if I can produce a super form, if it's actually a new gene or not, which is, it'd be pretty wild if it was a new gene. I don't know if it is or not. I don't know. Maybe that's the super form, and it could be something that's already on the market. There's actually, it almost looks like the Rio, which is the Super Arroyo. I'm gonna have to kind of look into that to see if it's something like that. I've actually seen someone actually had a mahogany listed. That usually mahoganies are completely different. Usually they kind of have like a goldish, almost like a coppery color on your mahoganies, but someone had listed a mahogany that looked exactly like that dinker. So I'll pretty much have to look as far as what's on the market already and see if it's a new gene or not, and see if I can produce a super form. So I still have a little bit of more work on that one. I really don't want to call it a new gene and then come to find out it's the same as another gene. Sometimes that can be pretty frustrating. Yeah, Easter weekend, of course. Yes, it's Easter. That's why we only have 44 people. It's Easter. Yeah, so I'm like in this, it's like, yeah, so I'm like zoned out here in the YouTube scene where it's like every day is the same. You know, I produce the video, I pretty much work 7 days a week, and all the holidays and the weekends and everything go by. As a matter of fact, it's been a little bit different now that I've been doing a live stream on the weekends. At least I know when it's the weekend versus working 7 days a week every single day. Of course, it's Easter. Yeah. Where's my brain? Yeah, so Easter weekend, that's why we only have 46 people instead of like 90 or 100 here on the live stream. It'll probably be the same tomorrow. Well, we might have actually better luck tomorrow after, you know, kind of winding down from all the Easter festivities on a Sunday. But yeah, I'm sure that's where everybody is now. They're probably getting their plans together, their meals and everything for tomorrow. All right, let's see. Any interest in Angolan pythons? So I don't really have any experience in Angolan pythons. I have seen them. Don't really know too much about them. I think they originate from Australia. Is that right? Maybe South America. Maybe South America, the Angolan python. But yeah, so as far as what I'm keeping in my collection, I pretty much only do ball pythons here in my collection. I actually started with a whole bunch of different species, and the problem is you can't really interbreed all the different snakes in your collection, especially with the small collection, if you have a whole bunch of different species. So I pretty much went with all ball pythons. I might actually venture into other species if I was to actually expand my breeding operation. But I'd probably do something maybe like boa constrictors. I might add some boas to my operation at some point. What do you think of the lace genes? So I've been kind of looking at the lace, thinking about doing a video showcase on the lace gene. The one I really like is the super lace. And I've noticed on a lot of the super laces, it actually has almost like a white, kind of a pixelated color coming up along the belly, which is pretty awesome on the super laces. They're really expensive too, which is pretty amazing. Teddy Roosevelt, hey from Scotland, where it's 2 a.m. That is crazy. I know some people are like, I stayed up, I stayed up really late to watch the beginning of your live stream because it's like 2 a.m. in another part of the world. I'm starting them here in Colorado, USA at 6 p.m. So right now it's actually 7:14 p.m. All right, Bubble. This is Bubble, my pinstripe around my neck here. She is a sweet snake. All right, Ball Pythons, Crypto and Cryptids. What would be your ultimate pinstripe these days? So yeah, so in here in my collection, I really like the combination of the pinstripe and the bamboo. Pretty much the cream of my crop that I produced last year was my bamboo, pastel, pinstripe, calico, possible het desert ghost, which is a pretty awesome combination. Let's see. Do you think people should specialize on just certain morphs or variety when it comes to breeding? I definitely think you should focus on a variety of different things. So it's kind of a double-edged sword if you focus too much on one specific thing. Sometimes if you produce a whole bunch of them, you can really drive the price down. As far as you're almost like competing against yourself because you're flooding your own market if you just focus on one gene. Let's see. She was a virgin, ovulated January 1st. Easy date to remember. It's the fastest, earliest I've ever had lay. Yeah, so that's pretty amazing. That's a really quick turnaround. So yeah, so Joseph says you can buy ARS racks one level at a time, which is true. Although I've actually seen, I'm not sure about the backlog for ARS caging and Freedom Breeder, pretty much the two top end rack systems. And I know with ARS caging, usually you can buy just a couple levels at a time, but I'm pretty sure both of them are on a really long back order. I'm not sure about ARS caging, but I think Freedom Breeder still is. Yeah, so yeah, that's the thing about ARS racks too. So if you actually do like I did, so like these racks behind me, I actually bought like 3 levels at a time or 4 levels at a time. And by the time you fill your whole room with all the racks that you want, the problem is you probably paid a third of your cost in the shipping cost because every time you buy a partial rack, it's really expensive in shipping. So you're paying that really expensive shipping over and over and over again. It's almost worth it if you can buy a whole rack all at once because you definitely save on the shipping. As a matter of fact, every time I got a boa tub, I think I paid like 150, 200 bucks for shipping on every single tub versus if you got the whole rack, it would definitely wouldn't be that expensive. Yeah, shipping. Yeah. So let's see. I got a super pastel, then I went and got a spider leopard. Nice. So yeah, so you'll get spider pastel leopards, which is a pretty amazing combination. I really like the combination of the pastel and the leopards, which is pretty awesome. Hey, we got another super chat. Thank you, William Chapman. All right, let's go down to the super chat question. Week 3 with female orange dream lemon blast won't eat frozen thawed. How long should I keep trying before throwing in the towel and feed live? Let's see, week 3, female orange dream lemon blast. So Really depends on how big the snake is. So if it's a juvenile, I would probably, it really depends. So if you actually have a hatchling, or like one that's maybe like anywhere from 100 grams to about 300 grams, what I would actually do is I would go back to live mice, kind of go backwards and offer the live mice. You could probably do, with something like that, you may be able to do twice a week with the live mice. And then once you get up to anywhere from like 300 to 800, a lot of times they'll really take frozen thawed really well. That's the time you really want to switch. But if you have a bigger snake, say if you have like a 1,500 gram all the way up to, several thousand grams, sometimes they can just go off of food randomly and be stubborn. And probably what I would do is, if they have really good body condition and they're a really big snake like Bubble here, and she doesn't eat for 2 or 3 weeks, I don't really go back to the live. I just kind of wait it out as far as just kind of holding on, because the problem is every time if a snake doesn't eat and you go back to live, then pretty soon you get the continual live feeder problem where they'll only eat live and they won't take frozen thawed. All right, let's see. Let's see. Teddy Roosevelt. Reasons we use plastic containers. Our ARS are a pain to work with. International, huh? The heat penners are not allowed in the UK as they're not certified. That's interesting. IKEA shelves are cheap. Yeah, that's always the thing with the price. Hey, got another super chat. Thank you, Micah. All right. Yeah, so I've actually seen a lot of people go to those cheap tubs. It seems like you could really expand your operation with the less expensive tubs. But I didn't know about the certification on the ARS racks. That's pretty interesting. All right, super chat question. It's going on my second week with my new juvenile ball python buddy after Bobby. Hoping to hold him this week, but now he is acting strange and runs into his hide when he sees me. Any thoughts? So yeah, so when you're actually dealing with a hatchling ball python or a juvenile, yeah, sometimes it can be a little bit skittish. What you really need to do is just kind of handle them with some bold confidence, I'd say, and just pick them up. What I like to do, especially with the hatchlings, is what I'll do is I'll kind of pick them up and I'll put them like on my arm, kind of, well, with a smaller snake, I'll just kind of put them on my arm and hold them like on my side where I'm not really looking at them and bugging them. And I'll just keep them there for maybe 5 minutes and kind of walk around the house and kind of do other things at the same time. And then they kind of relax, just kind of being on your arm, just kind of hanging around the house. And then you can kind of pick them up and get a little bit closer of a look on them. But yeah, sometimes when they're smaller, they get a little bit skittish. You just kind of have to boldly pick them up and really handle them. And you want to be kind of really slow and don't move too fast. And don't try not to really freak them out when they're small. And sometimes you can actually hold them for a little bit longer when they're smaller to kind of tame them down too. All right, so let's go back up here. A little behind on the questions. 52 people on, not too bad for Easter weekend, which is kind of crazy. We've been going for an hour, 26 minutes. Gonna go for another hour and a half if we can make it. All right, let's see. I'd rather not buy one at a time, personally. Yeah, so plastic totes. Yeah, plastic totes. As a matter of fact, when I first started in ball pythons, I bought a whole collection of snakes and I ordered some racks. I ordered my ARS 70 series racks. And my snakes were available before my rack actually came in, which is kind of crazy. I kind of got to this transition point where I had all these snakes and I didn't have anywhere to put them. And what I actually did is I went to Home Depot and I bought a bunch of plastic tubs just as temporary holding spots for my ball pythons. As a matter of fact, that'll actually come in handy if you like evacuate from a fire or something like that. So sometimes the plastic totes are really handy just for kind of a transition if you need to kind of hold some snakes for a while. Let's see. I have an Era 7030 and 5040 coming at the end of the month. 8 to 10 weeks shipping time. Wow, that's like 2.5 months. Kind of crazy. Meets and beats. Hey, Chris and Bobby, what's going on? All right, let's see. Let's see. Teddy Roosevelt. Easter is not really celebrated in the UK. Wow, that's kind of crazy. It's really just a chocolate egg or two and very rarely a card. The only existing thing is the 3 weeks of school that the kids. Huh. That's pretty wild. Yeah, Easter and Christmas here in the United States is really big. Probably the two biggest holidays, I would say. All right, Joseph. I like the 5540s. I only use the 70s for my big girls. Yeah, so I actually have a few really big girls that won't even fit in the 70 series tubs, which is pretty crazy, pretty unusual. I'd say most of your females, the biggest females, will fit in a 70 series ARS tub. All right, Ernesto, what are your thoughts on the sugar calico jeans? So yeah, I actually did a comparison video of the sugar versus the calico, and I'm pretty much convinced the sugar is exactly the same as the calico jean. Both of them are extremely variable. As a matter of fact, a lot of people say, you know, the sugar is completely different than the calico, mainly because they'll have a sugar in their collection which is completely different than the calico in their collection. And what a lot of people don't realize is there's a lot of variability in the sugars and the calicos, and pretty much any version of sugar, if you look hard enough, you could find the same exact version in a calico. So I'm convinced they're pretty much exactly the same. Yeah, 5,250. Yeah, so ARS is really super expensive for the racks. Yeah. Angolan pythons are from Angola. Okay, yeah. So when it comes to other snakes, I really don't get into other snakes because I don't know much about them at all. Yeah, so which is interesting. All right, let's see. 70-30 for big females, yeah. So let's see. Yeah, so I found if you're actually dealing with ARS, it's definitely better to call them or email them. I actually tried to order some stuff on their website and it doesn't really seem to work. It seems like it's better if you actually call them or contact them directly and kind of work with them. Let's see. All right, the more you order, the bigger the discount. Let's see. All right. Hey, Chris, I have an albino and he won't eat. He weighed 550 grams. Now he weighs 400 grams. It's been about 3 months. Yeah, so 400 grams, haven't eaten for 3 months. I would probably go back to like a live mouse on that one. As a matter of fact, what I'd probably start, I would actually go back to, I would actually try a frozen thawed mouse and start there. See if you can do a frozen thawed mouse. You probably have to do like an adult mouse maybe at 400 grams, maybe even like a jumbo mouse at that point. So especially for any ball python that's like less than like 400 grams, sometimes you kind of have to work backwards. So normally when a ball python is hatched, usually they're about, I'd say about 80 grams, something like that. And I found pretty much the only thing they'll eat is like a live mouse hopper. And they'll eat probably anywhere from like 6 to 8 live mouse hoppers. And they get to the point where they'll pretty much eat anything. You put your finger in there and they'll try to eat your finger. And at that point, you want to go to like a frozen thawed mouse, give them over on frozen thawed, and then eventually transition over to the frozen thawed rat. And if you actually kind of transition from the live mouse to the frozen thawed mouse to, sometimes you actually have to go to like a live like a small rat, like a rat pup or something like that before you go to the frozen thawed rats. And then if you get to the point where you're feeding them frozen thawed rats and they stop eating, a lot of times you have to go backwards kind of in the chain. So you'd have to go back to like a frozen thawed mouse, and if they won't eat the frozen thawed mouse, then I go back to the live mouse. But yeah, at 400 grams, after 3 months, it definitely should be eating more than that. So That's kind of, 550 grams, that's a little bit early. Then you'd normally see like the 1,000 gram wall problem that you get. Usually anywhere from like 800 to 1,200 grams. Sometimes they can stop, but I would probably go back to like a frozen thawed mouse at that point. All right, Brooklyn Hydro. I'm a huge fan. Thank you. All right, let's see. Teddy Roosevelt, it's off topic, but we don't have mosquitoes in Scotland. Are they actually annoying? So this is kind of interesting. Up here in the mountains of Colorado, we are at 9,000 feet of elevation way up here in Colorado. So we actually have snow. As a matter of fact, the snow is just starting to melt up here in the middle of March. Our summers are probably about only 5 or 6 months long, and then it starts snowing again. So we don't have a lot of the stuff that a lot of other people have. So every now and then I'll see maybe 1 or 2 mosquitoes up here in the mountains, which is hardly at all. If I actually see a mosquito, it's pretty rare. We don't have any snakes, no wild snakes at all up here in the mountains. We have flies, biting flies. That's probably the worst thing up here. You get in there with the cows, and let me tell you, the flies can absolutely tear up, like the ears on my dogs outside. I have to, probably one of my biggest expenses is fly spray and all the different fly traps and everything. But the worst thing that I've ever seen, kind of off topic, is when I was over in New Hampshire. I lived over there, and they had these black flies that are like super tiny, almost smaller than like a fungus gnat, and they move around in these big clouds, and they bite like a mosquito, and they'll completely surround you. As a matter of fact, once in a while, I'd like stop on my motorcycle in the middle of the woods in New Hampshire, and I get completely surrounded by these black flies that'd be biting me everywhere, and I just have to take off running because it was so crazy. That's probably the worst thing I've ever seen. Another super chat, Adam. Thank you for the super chat. All right. I know we got a little off topic on that one. All right, super chat question. After a pre-lay shed, how long should it be for a snake lays eggs? So I found pretty much if it actually is the pre-lay shed, they'll lay eggs almost exactly 30 days from the pre-lay shed. I've actually seen some people that'll go like 40 or even 45 days after the pre-lay shed. So it's not really an exact science when it comes to the pre-lay shed. And sometimes you can actually have a shed and it's not necessarily the pre-lay shed. I've actually seen that before, where you're waiting 30 days and 40 days, 45 days, and you still don't get eggs, and then the snake sheds again. So sometimes it can kind of trick you that way too. All right, Snakes Gaming, I'm here. What is going on? Jacob Knorr, love the content. Thank you. Yes, mosquitoes are super annoying. Worst annoyance ever, in my opinion. So what's funny about mosquitoes is I used to be a beekeeper where I had the full suit with keeping the honeybees and collecting the honey. And one time I actually kept my bees down by, as a matter of fact, it was actually down by a river down in another town. And I went down there after dark in my bee suit, and there were so many mosquitoes that like covered my entire front face of my honeybee suit that they completely covered it. Sometimes those mosquitoes can be unbelievable. And here in Colorado, we actually have a disease called West Nile disease that can make you really sick for a really long time. You actually get that from a mosquito bite. So you have to be really careful as far as getting bit from mosquitoes. You can actually get a disease from it here in Colorado. Jack Hill Life, what is going on? How's everyone going? James, what would you suggest to pair with a lesser clown? So I do like the lesser clowns. I actually have one in my collection. It's a female. So when you're actually working with a lesser, I would probably avoid pairing up anything in the blue-eyed leucistic, because potentially you could get like, so for example, if you actually had like a Mojave het clown and you bred it to a lesser clown, potentially you can get a blue-eyed leucistic and you wouldn't know if it was het clown or a visual clown, because the completely white snake would mask it. So I would probably avoid anything in the blue-eyed leucistic, unless you're actually just going for like a blue-eyed leucistic het clown. without actually hitting the visual, then it would probably be okay. So it really depends what you're going for. But as far as, yeah, so the lesser, I do like the bananas in the clowns. Probably one of my favorite clown combinations, like a banana enchi. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm working on this year, is the banana enchi lesser clown combination. But yeah, so for the lesser, you can also work in some brightening genes. You could probably do like pastel or super pastel with the lesser clown. That might actually really give you an impressive effect on that combination. Micah, all right, channel member. I can see you have the icon. Is this a weekly thing for you? Let's see, just so I know to check in every week while on my new adventure with Buddy. So yeah, so right now I'm doing live streams every Saturday and every Sunday for 3 hours on each day. So something new. Yeah, I'm just going to try it for a while. But it's kind of interesting because it seems like YouTube is YouTube's like, I actually go to my YouTube dashboard and they're like, you know, it's funny because on my live streams I really don't get the continual views that I get on my other videos. Although I really like doing the live streams, and I make some super chat on my live streams, so it brings in a little bit more money that makes up for the lack of views. And it seems like my subscribers are about the same. But over on my YouTube dashboard, it's kind of funny. The messages, okay, they're like, this month your views are down. You should try changing your topics around or something like that because my views are down. I'm like, yeah, my views are down is because I'm doing live streams. So it seems like YouTube's kind of complaining a little bit that I don't get quite the views from the live stream. But I do like doing the live streams. It's a little bit different, kind of changes it up a little bit and kind of work it into my schedule. So I'll probably do live streams. I'm thinking for the next, I don't know, next couple months at least, doing live streams on the weekend, something a little different. All right, Robert Bailey picked up a 2-year-old female normal today. She's in great shape and well fed, but she's very nippy. She wasn't held much by her previous owners. Any advice? So yeah, the best thing for a snake is to actually just keep holding the snake and hold it off. And it seems like the more you hold the snake, the more it can really tame down. I've only ever had one ball python that for whatever reason, I really couldn't tame down. It was just, I don't know what was wrong with that snake, just a crazy, crazy snake. But usually once you, as a matter of fact, when I started holding Bobby at the beginning, he wasn't really held at all at the very beginning. And when I first started doing videos with Bobby, he would like choke me out every couple of minutes and just kind of squirm away. And he was like totally ballistic. And he, you know, after holding him every day, it probably took 6 months of holding him every day until he got really super tame, like this snake around my neck, which is Bubbles is super tame. I don't know what Bubbles is doing, but yeah, she is super tame too. All right, let's see. What would you pair up with a female lemon blast? So yeah, so I do have I think like 3 or 4 female lemon blasts here in my collection. I actually bought them as part of a collection. I would pair pretty much anything with a lemon blast. That's the combination of the pastel and the pinstripe. Those genes go pretty well with just about any combination. I really like to work the bamboo in with the lemon blast. Probably my favorite combination. You get a really like a silver metallic colored snake. Let's see, James. As a new breeder, would you suggest being specialized or working with one recessive, such as clown or pied? Or would you try to get into several genes? So that's a good question. So when it actually comes to like the recessives, I think you do have an advantage of kind of specializing in one specific recessive versus getting a whole bunch of different recessives in your collection. So for example, I've actually known some breeders where they'll only do like one line of axanthic and everything they breed has that axanthic in the mix, which is pretty awesome. Although, I don't know, I'd say if you're actually specializing, it's better with the recessive to specialize. But if you're not doing a lot of recessive, I would probably do, you know, like across the board variety with a lot of your dominant and co-dominant genes, kind of mix it up. Do I ever get mad? And what makes me mad? The last time I got really mad is when I raised up some little baby chickens and I put them out with my cows, and my cows ate all the baby chickens. I got really mad at that. I was like, oh, I can't believe I spent all this time raising up my chickens and here my cows ate them. And I found out later that yes, cows will eat your baby chickens, which is kind of crazy. And I think the other time I got really mad is when I raised up ducks all winter long, and then in the spring, all my ducks flew away because I didn't know to clip their wings. that's with the animal things, that can get me really frustrated when you spend a lot of time trying to work on some animals or something, and then it ends in disaster for one reason or another. What do you think about womas? So there's actually two kind of womas. There's the woma gene. All right, I need a drink. There is the Ball Python Woma gene in ball pythons, and there's also the Australian Woma Python, which are two completely different womas. So the Australian womas, I actually had one. They are a pretty awesome snake. A little bit snappy when they're young, but the problem with the womas, the Australian womas, is they don't really come in all the different morphs like ball python. So you pretty much breed a woma to a woma, and you end up with a bunch of womas. And I think womas, they actually sell for quite a bit of money. So the womas are, I think they were anywhere from like $300 to $500 for the Australian woma hatchlings the last time I checked, which was a couple of years ago. All right, so let's see. Turbo Bros Ball Pythons. I want to get into Desert Ghost Pied. Yeah, that's a high-end combination right there. Kyle Glinsky, how can you tell if your python is too fat? So that's a good question. So I would say this snake right here around my neck, this is probably the ideal size for a ball python. So it really depends on if they're breeding too. So this one I'm actually breeding. So she might have some eggs inside of her. But if you actually look at this one and you look at Bobby, as far as kind of the body condition of this one, I'd say this is probably your normal body condition for a really healthy snake. And if they're actually fasting, they'll actually get a little bit skinnier. And sometimes, like after you feed them too, I found that a lot of ball pythons, so for example, if I fed this one like 2 rodents in a week, like the very next week, she would look really super big and bloated. And it seems like when you feed a snake and then wait for like a few days, maybe a week, sometimes they can really get bloated that way too. But yeah, so if you, it's kind of eyeball a snake to see if it's really overweight or not. So this girl, she's getting a little squirrely. All right. Oh, she's going up under my shirt. I don't know what she's doing. All right, girl. What are you doing? All right, Bubble. All right, NEG. What would you pair with a male pastel, 100% het clown, possible het desert ghost? Good question. So I would probably pair that with either a clown or another het clown. If you can actually find a double het for clown and desert ghost, although it might be pretty expensive with that combination, that would be pretty awesome if you could do that. But it seems like when you work pastel or super pastel in with the clown, those two genes work really well with the clown. So probably what I would do is I would do like a het clown pastel with maybe some other genes in there. Maybe find, if you actually can work, another het desert ghost in there too. All right, love the lives. Thank you for your experience. Thank you. Yes. I read that holding them too much stresses them out. Good question. So I think there's a lot of debate over that. I think the longer you hold your snake, the more tame that it actually becomes. So I think there is a limit as far as holding a snake too much. You know, if I hold Bobby for like hours and hours and hours, it seems like he doesn't want to be on my shoulder anymore. And he just starts crawling away. You can definitely tell when he's had too much. Usually what I do now is I'll hold my snake for maybe about an hour maximum. It seems like after that, if you go to like hour and a half to 2 hours, sometimes they can get a little bit squirrely and they want to be back in their tub. And it's for me, you know, doing these live streams, it kind of helps to kind of keep rotating them through. All right, Dave from New Hampshire. Any tips on an adult python that is strictly a mouser? Yeah, so I actually bought an adult ball python mouser that was probably about as big as this snake, and I didn't know anything about mousers or anything when I bought this snake. Didn't even look at the ad to look to see if it was a mouser. And come to find out, I struggled with that snake for years and years trying to get it on anything else. And sometimes you just have to just kind of bite the bullet and admit that your snake is a mouser. Get the biggest frozen mice that you can over on like Rodent Pro or one of those websites over there. Maybe like some retired breeders or something like that and do mice. Sometimes it'll actually work to feed like a frozen thawed mouse and then kind of follow up like a half hour later with a rat. Sometimes you can actually trick them into taking a rat. But I found in a lot of mousers, especially really old ones, a lot of times they can pretty much be mousers for life, which is kind of frustrating with some of those mousers. All right, Antonio Cooper, what would you get pairing a pastel tang with a fire clown? I'm not sure. Tang, I'm not sure what that is. I think that's a kind of an autocorrect that kind of got messed up on that one. Outdoor Fever, what's up? JKL Balls watching, nice. All right, Odie in the house, TN in the house, what's up? PZ, love you. Adam Herkelman, what would work well to pair with a pinstripe pied for another pied combo? So yeah, pinstripe pied's kind of interesting. I actually have a pinstripe pied. I've been trying to get to breed for the last couple of years, and she is super stubborn. Still won't lay any eggs for me. Sometimes these ball pythons can be crazy. But yeah, I would probably go with like another pied, or you could do like a het pied with other genes in with the pinstripe pied. It'd be kind of interesting to do maybe like maybe like a leopard or something like that to really jumble it up. Pinstripe pied, it's interesting when you add pastel to the pinstripe pied. I think it really kind of detracts from the pinstripe pied. I really like the pinstripe pieds because you get a lot of gold. Sometimes when you add pastel in there, it can be almost like a muddy kind of a version of kind of like a lemon blast pied. I don't really like the pastel with the pinstripe pieds. I'd probably go with something maybe like an orange dream instead of that. You can actually work that in. That'd probably have a better effect than the pastel. All right, meets and beats. Talk to you next time. Thanks again. All right, see you later. So we've been going for an hour 51. Still have 50 people on the line. Pretty awesome. We're going to go for another hour and 10 minutes. All right. Danielle S. How can you tell if a female is ready to breed without an ultrasound? So a lot of people are kind of obsessed over, you know, ultrasounding and looking for the follicles to see if they're at least 10 millimeters before they start pairing them up. And what I do is I look at the calendar. When it's October 15th, I pair up all my males and all my females. And I figure if I keep moving my males through my females for the next 5 months, you know, at some point in the next 5 months, those females will definitely be ready and they'll have follicles that are at least 10 millimeters, assuming they're still eating and still doing pretty good. Sometimes if they go off of food or if they're looking a little bit thin, sometimes they won't actually go the following year. But yeah, so I just kind of randomly pick a date in the fall, which pretty much corresponds to all the other breeders as far as the schedule of breeding, and then I just pair them up. Let's see. Does it matter which parent is which? So I've actually had this question quite a few times. So if you actually took a bamboo, for example, and you bred it to a pinstripe, does it matter if the male's a bamboo or if the female's a bamboo? And it actually doesn't matter at all. You get the same exact odds and the same exact offspring, whether the male or the female is one gene or another. Larry Finch, what is up? Long time no see. Having my very first clutch laying in a few days. Nice. What, if anything, extra should I do beforehand? So yeah, so I'll get your incubator ready. Get ready for those eggs, which is pretty exciting. I get your, I probably go through, clean all your egg tubs. I probably wouldn't mix the vermiculite in the water or anything like that until you actually have the day of the laying. I would probably wait on that. Just make sure you have everything ready as far as that. Not a whole lot to get ready. Make sure you have the vermiculite. Make sure you have some press and seal if you're using that on your tubs. Yeah, pretty exciting. All right, Jeremy Gordy. Look, I got a male Cine. He's gone off food for 6 months. He weighed 2,000. Now weighs 1,500. Will not eat anything. Yeah, so yeah, I actually had kind of the same thing when I first started. I had some snakes that were just not eating and not eating, and they go from like 2,000 grams down to about 1,500. I was so exasperated. I ended up selling some of those females at reptile shows. I was like, I cannot, whatever, for the life of me, I cannot get these females to eat. And I sold them, and I probably shouldn't have sold them, because usually right about 6 months or 8 months, a lot of times they'll just snap and they'll go back on food and start eating like crazy. And keep in mind, if they're like 1,500 grams, then they'll eat like 5 or 6 rats within a matter of like a month and a half or 2 months. A lot of times they'll go right back to 2,000 grams within a short amount of time. So I wouldn't give up hope yet. Sometimes it just takes a while with ball pythons. All right, James, my Enchi pinstripe seems to have issues when eating. She seems to miss her strikes a lot. My other 9 always hit right away. Should I be concerned? No spider. No, it just seems like certain snakes do kind of have a problem hitting the rat. It seems like with certain snakes, I don't know if they just have kind of poor vision or what it is. So maybe sometimes they just get a little bit too excited and just kind of snap and then miss the rodent. But yeah, it seems like with certain snakes, I do have some that just miss the rodents every now and then. Sometimes you just have to give them another chance. And sometimes I've actually found on some of my snakes, if they miss the first time for whatever reason, they just decide they're not going to try to strike the rat again. And I just like missed my one and only shot with some of the snakes, which is kind of frustrating too. All right, let's see. Just passed up an adult female blue-eyed leucistic mouser at 900 grams. So if you actually have a mouser at 900 grams, I would think you could potentially transition that one over to eating rats fairly easy, versus if you had like a 3,000 gram mouser, it'd be a lot more difficult than something at 900 grams. So a lot of my hatchlings, as a matter of fact, sometimes I'll do mice all the way up to like 300 or 400 grams, just because, like, for example, right now I'm producing a few mice, just keeping my mouse colony going. And I have a few hatchlings from last year. I'm pretty much feeding them mice only with an occasional rat here and there. But yeah, so at 900 grams, you may be able to transition them over to pretty easily, I would think, transition them over to rats. Jason, how's the retic pairing going? Yeah, so I don't know if you caught on one of my videos, I actually took, I decided to pair them up again. I took my smaller retic, about 45 pounds. I put it in my enclosure with my 100-pound female reticulated python. And Lucy actually bit the head of Sunny, where the head of Sunny was all the way almost in the throat of Lucy. They grabbed on and they just wrapped up in a ball. Kind of messed them both up a little bit. Luckily, they didn't lose any eyes or anything like that, which is kind of crazy. So after that, I'm pretty much done pairing for the year. I think I'm going to wait until next year to pair them up again. But I don't think Lucy's going to go, because she's really still eating a lot of rodents right now. So we may have to wait till next year on the reticulated pythons to pair them up again. I'm thinking maybe mid-October when I pair up my ball pythons, I might pair up my reticulated pythons too. Yeah, so he'll eat 6 months isn't bad. Yeah, so 6 months on a fast, I would say is, it's once in a while I get a 6-month fast. I'd say usually it's about 2 or 3 months and they come back on food. 6 months is pretty much the longest, from 6 to 8 months. Let's see. How long do I plan on breeding for? Pretty much the rest of my life, I guess. So unless you're talking about pairing up my snakes, I actually stopped pairing my males and my females in mid-March. I separated my males and my females pretty much for the rest of the year. All right, Punk Rocka, should I have a plan on what to buy on the 15th reptile show, or let the show tell me what to buy? Good question. Yeah, so I never really plan on buying certain things at the reptile shows. As a matter of fact, well, yeah, so you could potentially do that if you're actually driving. So yeah, so there's actually a reptile show on the 15th of May that I'm going to actually go to. It's actually the Pueblo Reptile Expo on I actually go on March it's actually May 15th at about 2 p.m. I'm actually going to be there just the one day, probably about 2 to 5. As a matter of fact, on Monday's video, I'm going to explain kind of the schedule of events around that whole thing. I'm actually going to do the reptile show on Saturday, and then we'll do the motorcycle ride on Sunday. So that should be pretty fun. Yeah, see what you like at the show and then find the best deals. So it's I'm not sure how big that show is actually going to be at the Pueblo Reptile Show. It'd be kind of interesting to see what's there in the middle of May, if people actually have some new hatchlings, or if it's going to be a lot of stuff from I'm thinking it'll probably be a lot of the stuff from the year before that didn't sell in the fall. You probably get some good deals at that show. Let's see. Can I make money with 2 females and 1 male? Yes, you actually can. You can make a lot of money if you just have 1 male and 1 female, depending on the male and the female. It's kind of like it's almost like breeding horses. If you're breeding race horses, you can sell like $1 million racehorse, or if you're breeding really cheap horses, you can lose your shirt and you won't even pay for the hay if you're breeding like a really cheap horse that you just send to the auction or something like that. It's kind of the same with ball pythons. You can, if you're just breeding normals, you don't really make any money. But if you're breeding like really high-end genes like sunsets or monsoons that sell for like, anywhere from, thousands of dollars per snake, you can actually make a lot of money. So I would say the more you invest in a certain project, generally the more you'll actually get out of it. So it depends on the upfront investment. Let's see. What project are you going after? So I have a lot of projects in the works here with 40 plus ball pythons as far as breeders here in my collection. I'm doing a lot of pied stuff, some desert ghost stuff, working on the scaleless project that haven't made any completely scaleless yet. Yeah, a lot of bamboo stuff I'm actually going to produce this year, which is pretty awesome. All right, Sean Greenlee, how do you figure out what your snake's het percentages are? Yes, so so it depends on the breeding. So for example, if you took a het pied and you bred it to something else, 50% of the offspring would contain 1 copy of the pied gene, which would be 50% het. So if you actually breed 2 hets together, you'll actually get a 66% het. So it really depends on what you're breeding together as far as the percentages. And kind of the interesting thing with the percentages, say if you actually had like a 50% het pied and you bred it to a pied and got some visual pieds, the 50% would actually turn into 100% because the percentages is just the odds of it actually having that gene in there. Once you prove it out, 100% of the time that you'll actually have that gene in that snake. So the hets are just the statistics, just the odds of having that gene in there. All right, Lucas Patterson. My Super Pastel Desert Ghost female is massive. I had 8 confirmed locks. Nice. How do you know when they're going to lay eggs? And she just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Yeah, so that's the other thing. I would say if your female, especially after 8 locks, if your female keeps getting bigger and bigger and you haven't fed her, that is a good indication that she is going to lay some eggs. If she keeps getting bigger and bigger, but she keeps eating rats, that is probably an indication she's not going to lay eggs. So usually they stop eating towards the end when they start really building a lot of weight, and that's a pretty much good sign that she's going to lay. All right, let's see. Adam, have you ever had to deal with a rat that seems smarter and faster than the snake? Yeah, so in that case, probably what I would do, if you have a rat that's smarter and faster, as a matter of fact, I've actually had some problems where I'll take like a live rat and I'll put it in with a snake. And if the snake tries to bite the rat and it misses, then the rat becomes smarter than the snake. It kind of figures out what's going on. Usually what I'll do is, especially if that snake doesn't eat that rat, what I'll do is I'll euthanize that rat with CO2 and then either freeze it for future feeding or try to feed it as like a fresh kill, maybe put it under a heat lamp a little bit. But yeah, so if you actually have a snake that tries to bite the rat and it misses, the rat can actually get smarter than the snake. Sometimes another thing you can actually do is try to use a smaller rat. Sometimes if you have the bigger rats that the snake can't really grab onto, sometimes the bigger ones can be a little bit smarter than the smaller rats. All right, let's see. PZ, you need a cold beer and a hot tub. That sounds about right. Yeah. I actually have a hot tub, but it's not working. The heater went out on my hot tub. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about getting a new hot tub at some point, which would be pretty awesome. I used to use my hot tub quite a bit. Super chat not working now for some reason. Oh, that's interesting. So I can actually you know, it's kind of interesting because I had that problem before. I'm going to do something real quick here on my laptop. Hopefully my live stream won't crash, but I can actually send a message to customer support. I'll just put super chat doesn't seem to be working per fans or something. All right, include screenshot, send. All right, so yeah, sometimes the super chat doesn't work, and then I'll send a message to YouTube customer support, and sometimes they'll go in and kind of diagnose the problem. I've had that problem before where people are trying over and over and over to do a super chat and it won't take it. And it seems like when I do the feedback and get support that it'll actually work. So we might have to give it a few minutes and then try it again. All right, let's see. All right, for you, Chris, at what point do you find your breeding females go off of food during follicular development, and how long before ovulating? So it really depends. I would say usually they start going off of food, usually like in late spring, early spring. I'd say usually like in April, March or April. A lot of times they'll go off of food. Probably the earliest they start going off of food is like January or February, something like that. Really depends on where you're at in the breeding season. I'd say usually they keep eating in November and December. They'll usually keep eating. It's usually the beginning of the year into the spring where they'll stop eating. And then let's see, how long before ovulating? So my snakes are actually ovulating right now. So really depends on the season. So usually, so it really depends. So some years I'll actually have eggs in like mid-March, and right now in the beginning of April, my snakes are ovulating. So really it's kind of like a sliding scale as far as when they're ovulating and when they're laying eggs. All right, let's see. Not Ball Python related. Have you ever worked with the leopard geckos? So I had a couple leopard geckos. The one thing I didn't like about the leopard geckos is that they eat crickets. They eat crickets and mealworms, and I'm not really into, breeding or buying my own crickets, especially with the crickets with the leopard geckos. That's one of the reasons I got out of them. Now I do crested geckos, and the advantage of the crested geckos is I can actually mix up the powder into kind of that slurry, and they'll eat the kind of that slurry powder, and I don't have to deal with insects at all with those, which is pretty awesome. Although I do have my dubia roaches for my Pac-Man frog and my tarantula, but I found those are really low maintenance as far as maintaining a colony of dubia roaches. So pretty much got out of the leopard geckos just because of the kind of the high maintenance insects on that one. All right. As a matter of fact, a lot of people in Ball Python seem to naturally migrate to crested geckos out of all the other reptiles, which I thought was kind of interesting. All right, PJC Creations. Just got back from a reptile show today, and I got home to notice the snake I purchased has an infected eye. Any types of home remedies that I can help with it? So yeah, so with an infected eye, I would probably take it to a veterinarian. A lot of times if I have any like eye infections or like cuts or scrapes on the snake itself, what I'll actually do is I'll mix up some, I usually use like a povidone iodine, almost like the strength of like a weak tea in water, and give them like a water bath with that. You can probably try that. It's kind of like a universal antiseptic. And I make it up like a kind of the strength of a weak tea at about maybe, I'd say about 85 degrees, 85 or 90. Just give them like a quick bath just for a few minutes in something like that. So you can kind of splash it on their head too. If they have kind of an affected eye, that might be the best thing for that. All right, let's see. Claude, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you collect anything as a hobby? Rocks, watches, etc. So I'm not really that much of a collector, I guess. Well, when I was a kid, I used to collect beer cans, and I had this really huge beer can collection that I had for years and years, probably about 20 years. And the reason I had that is because I actually lived in Wisconsin, right next to a recycling plant. So we'd find these old beer cans at the recycling plant. Some of the ones that you'd actually open up with like the old can openers, where you'd make like a little triangle hole in the top of the old can. That's pretty much the only collection I had. I've since sold my beer can collection. Don't really collect anything. I have a few watches, maybe like 4 or 5 watches, but not a whole lot. I guess you could consider my guns. I have a gun collection, maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 guns. I have some pistols and some long rifles, but not really anything where I have like a whole bunch of stuff as far as a collection. All right, Luke's Morris, what would you put with a super pastel Enchi leopard lesser? So that's a pretty awesome combination. So super pastel, so the Enchi and the leopard are both really strong pattern enhancing mutations. I would probably do like a spot nose with that one. That would probably be good with the Enchi and the leopard. And then super pastel, I would probably go with either a pastel or another super pastel to keep the super pastels going in something like that, which would be pretty awesome. And then of course lesser, if you mix it with the blue-eyed leucistic, you're going to end up with the all white snake with the blue eyes on that one. All right, David Welch, have you ever bought a 100% het that after breeding you proved it was not a het? What would you do? Is that a pinstripe on your shoulder? Yes. This is Bubble, my female pinstripe. I'm giving Bobby a break. Well, as a matter of fact, I can actually pull Bobby out. We're at like 2 hours, 12 minutes. But yeah, so the thing about the hats, so if you actually took, so for example, if you got 100% hat and you breed it to like a visual and you don't produce any visuals, technically it could still be a hat, and maybe you just hit the odds really bad. I've actually seen that before. I've actually seen some people, well, they'll take like a bamboo, you know, when you take a bamboo and you breed it to something, statistically, you should produce 50% bamboos. And I've seen people will actually take a bamboo, breed it to something, and get all bamboos. Every single offspring in the whole clutch will be a bamboo. And I've actually had just kind of the opposite. As a matter of fact, last year, I took a bamboo, I bred it to something else, and out of 10 eggs, I only got 1 bamboo, which is kind of crazy. So what I would do is I would probably try again on that 100%, because, you know, technically it still could be, especially if someone says it's 100%, I would definitely try it again. I would just not breed it once and then make a decision. Let's see. Beta team, yeah, iodine bath, yeah. So it's kind of interesting with the povidone iodine. I actually use that on all my animals. And kind of the one that kind of turned me on to that is I actually had a llama that had cancer on its chest. I had a llama with this big, huge growth on the front of the chest of the llama. I actually brought it to the veterinarian. They did surgery and removed this big tumor from my llama, and I actually had to put this bandage on the front of the llama and spray it down with the iodine every single day. I actually made the iodine every day and squirted it on with the syringe to clean off the kind of the wound that it had on the chest. I pretty much use iodine on everything, which is kind of crazy. All right, Clint Winton. I have a special ball python female. Should I breed my male clownter and get hats? Would it be worthwhile? So yeah, it really depends on how many snakes that you have. So what I would actually do with the special, I would actually take a special, breed it to a Mojave, and make some crystals. That would be pretty awesome to make some crystals. It's kind of like a blue cystic that has like a yellowish color. Some of the crystals can be really yellow. It's like a bright yellow blue cystic, which is pretty wild. All right, Danielle S. What would you recommend breeding to an ivory male het desert ghost? Yes, so ivory is the super yellow belly, so everything you breed to it would be yellow belly. And then let's see, so it'd be het for desert ghost. So you could actually breed it to a desert ghost or a het desert ghost, and potentially you could make some so you'd actually end up with yellow belly desert ghosts. Probably what I would do, so that one is it's a male. I would probably breed it. So I'm kind of partial to the freeways with the asphalt and the yellow belly, especially if you could work desert ghost into the freeways. That would be pretty awesome. So what I would actually do is I would get like an asphalt, maybe an asphalt het desert ghost, which might be kind of expensive for that. But if you could actually make some visual desert ghosts, freeways, that would be really crazy. It'd be a really expensive combination if you could actually hit it. That would be pretty amazing. All right, PZ, I am a gold star dad from 35 and thank you for what you do. Sure. Orlando, let's see, what's the least expensive combo for making blue-eyed leucistics? So blue-eyed leucistics, you could probably, you know, kind of the low-end blue-eyed leucistics would be like, well, I would say they'd pretty much all be the same, except if you work bamboo into the combination. Bamboo is probably the most expensive as far as getting more of a high-end blue-eyed leucistic, but anything else will be pretty much the same price with your, you know, you can actually use like the Russo, the Lesser, the Mojave. You could actually use like the Special, the Mystic, and the Phantom if you actually mix those with like the Lesser, the Bamboo. you can make some white blue endosysticks, which would be pretty much all in the same price range, I would think. Let's see, Ball Pythons, Crypto and Cryptids. I look forward to these lives each weekend. Thank you. Speaking of which, it's 2 hours and 18 minutes, and I'm going to get Bobby back out for the last 45 minutes or so with the star of the show here. All right, we'll put Bubble back. We'll get Bobby. Come on, Bobby. All right. Bobby's in the house. Oh. Yeah, I think Bobby loves to come out of his tub. He likes to get out, that's for sure. Larry Finch, I'm the one you bought the albino pied and bred. Another snake I got from you. Pinstripe, het pied, het albino too. My albino pied male. If I get a visual albino pied, would you be interested in one? So yeah, so I was wondering if you were actually breeding that albino pied. So yeah, so if you got a visual albino pied, no, I'm not really. If I buy a snake, it'll probably be a different gene that I don't have here in my collection. As a matter of fact, I might actually produce some albino pieds this year because I'm breeding my albino pied to my albino het pied, and she's looking pretty good. So I may actually produce some more this year, which would be pretty awesome. But yeah, if you had an albino pied, you post it over on Morph Market, I can almost guarantee that you would sell that thing pretty quick. Let's see. Special hets are starting to go up in value. It seems like everything's going up in value, which is kind of crazy. Let's see. All right. Let's see, with 10 eggs, the chances of not hitting a 50% chance is less than 1 in 1,000 with regards to my het breeding question. Yes, so yeah, so the odds, I mean, you sit down and calculate the odds, it's like, what are the odds of actually hitting something like this? And kind of the interesting thing with odds and statistics is it really depends how you think of it. So for example, if you took like 25 dice and you threw them down and lined them all up on the table and looked at all the dice as far as the odds that you would get throwing just randomly 25 dice and lining them up, the odds of actually getting all those dice lined up in that specific order would be astronomical. It's like 1 in a million or something like that. But then if you actually think about it, hey, I threw these dice and I actually hit the 1 in a million odds. What are the odds that I actually hit it with the 25 dice on the very first time? And if you can actually think about it like that. So if you throw the dice every single time, you're going to hit an unusual odd that is like a 1 in a million odds. So it's kind of interesting when you start wrapping your head around statistics. It's like, what are the odds? But you have to hit some kind of the odds every single time. And if you actually look back on it, it's like, this is actually almost impossible. But when you're actually throwing the dice, it happens every single time. So it really depends if you're looking forward as far as the odds or looking backwards, what actually happens every single time. So statistics can kind of, if you actually wrap your mind around statistics, sometimes it can kind of blow your mind. All right, Orlando got a clown with his shed still on its head. Can't manage to really touch his head. Can I leave it and expect it to go to the next shed? So what you can actually do, I've actually seen a lot of people do this, where they'll take like a pillowcase and soak it in warm water and squeeze it out. Then put the snake in the pillowcase and tie it up and let the snake kind of crawl around in the pillowcase, in the wet pillowcase for a while. I've actually seen some people do that for kind of a stuck shed, especially around the head. That's probably what I would try. Let's see. Yeah, no go soak your snake. So yeah, so it's I mean, technically, you could wait until the next shed. It really depends on how bad the shed is, but I would try to get that shed off, especially if it's on the head or the eyes, like around the eyes of the snake. I would definitely try to get that shed off if you can. Isaac, I'm watching at work. Awesome. All right. David, I really want a bobby line baby snake. He's by far the most beautiful bamboo. Yeah, a lot of people want bobbies. They go super fast. I can't believe how fast they sell. Yeah, hopefully this year I'm expecting maybe about 20 or 30 straight bamboos, which would be pretty awesome. And I should get some bamboo combinations if all goes well. So yeah, so any hatchlings for sale? Right now I don't have any hatchlings. The only one that I have are just a couple holdbacks from last year that I'm actually holding back as breeders. And probably have eggs here. I would say within the next couple of weeks, I should have eggs. And then it's probably about 2.5 months from there until I'll actually see what's hatching out. And then I'll have some for sale at that time. So probably still maybe about 3 months away before I'll actually know what I'm getting from this breeding season, and I'll actually have some hatchlings for sale. Opinion on the cinnamon crystal. Good question. So the crystal is the combination of the special and the Mojave, which is technically a blue-eyed leucistic, even though a lot of times the crystals can actually have kind of a lot of yellow color coming through. It's one of the non-white blue-eyed leucistics with the crystal. And then if you add cinnamon to it, sometimes you can actually, with those non-white blue-eyed leucistics, sometimes you can add different genes and have an impact as far as the visual appearance of some of those combinations. So if you actually had cinnamon, you could probably darken the crystal, which would be pretty awesome. Yeah, so you can actually do quite a bit if you actually use that as a breeder. You'd have a dark gene and you'd have 2 genes in the blue-eyed leucistic. Stuck eye caps suck. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely don't want stuck eye caps, that's for sure. Yes. So yes, so that's one thing you want to make sure that you really don't want a snake with stuck shed on the eyes to go into another shed. Sometimes that can be problematic, especially if you have multiple sheds stuck on top of each other, especially on the eyes. You could potentially have problems, you know, with damaging the eyes on your ball python. All right, journey wise, how much would you think a Mojave genetic stripe would sell for? So that's a very good question. So when it comes to genetic stripes is a recessive mutation, and the price has actually been pretty low for genetic stripes compared to a lot of other recessive mutations, which is kind of surprising. So I would probably go over to like Morph Market and look at that combination and see what they're selling for if you can. Kind of get a price on those. It seems like all the ball pythons recently are increasing in price. So sometimes you have to kind of look at the current market value. So for example, I haven't actually looked at genetic stripes for probably 3 years as far as the price on genetic stripes. So they could significantly change since I last looked at them. So I double check over on Morph Market. Hems, greetings, Lord Hardwick. Greetings. Yeah, so we have we've been going for 2 hours, 26 minutes. We have about 35 minutes left on this live stream for Easter. I guess it's like an Easter live stream. We'll do another live stream tomorrow. I'm going to do another one tomorrow at the same time, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. All right. OM99AR. If you're a new breeder, what project would you work on? So yeah, so that's a good question. So for a new breeder, I would pretty much look at diversification. So I've actually thought about this before. You know, as a new breeder, I've always thought, all right, what if I actually took all my money, say if I got, you know, like $10,000 and I invested it into 2 snakes that were worth $5,000 a piece, like a male and a female, The problem is if you have all your eggs in one basket and those snakes don't produce year after year after year, it doesn't matter how expensive the clutch would be if you're not actually getting offspring from that pair of snakes. So what I would actually do is I would kind of diversify, maybe buy some snakes that are worth like $1,000 or like $1,500, and then maybe some mid-level worth like 800 or something like that, and then kind of some lower level that are worth, like anywhere from like 100 to like $300. So you have this whole range kind of at like a higher end, like not really extreme, but where you have a higher range. That way you have more of a chance of producing every year because you have more females. So that's kind of what I do, to kind of diversify that way. Morph Market doesn't have any Mojave genetic stripes. So what I would probably do is if you're trying to kind of look at prices for Mojave genetic stripe, I would probably do, you could actually look on like, you could probably look at like a genetic stripe lesser, or like maybe a genetic stripe. Well, I would think like a genetic stripe lesser might be close in price. And you can actually look at the stuff for sale and the stuff that is sold as far as getting idea as far as what the price is on that. I was thinking you could probably do some other genes like a genetic stripe Russo or something else in the blue-eyed cystic to kind of get a price range on a combination like that. Is there a certain price range you feel is the sweet spot in the sense that snakes sell quickly? Yeah, so if you're looking for a quick sale on snakes, I'd say the cheapest price, the better. But the problem is, if you're selling really cheap snakes, you're really not making a lot of money. So it's kind of interesting. When I first started in ball pythons, I had my whole table of like 60 snakes for sale at the reptile show. And I was trying to think in my head, all right, I'm thinking the bamboos are going to sell first, and this is going to sell first. And the ones that actually sold first were the normals. As a matter of fact, my first 3 or 4 snakes that I ever sold at a reptile show, they were all like $50 normal ball pythons. And a lot of people, they're just looking for a pet or something like that, looking for something for their kids. They don't want to spend a lot of money. And let me tell you, those really cheap ones go super fast. If you have like normals or pastels, the Mojaves, the lessers, the pinstripes, all the ones that are pretty much under about $150, they sell pretty much the quickest at a lot of your reptile shows. And for me, it seems like the bamboos, mainly because Bobby is kind of the star of the YouTube channel. Everyone sees Bobby and they want a Bobby baby. But other than that, I'd say the cheaper the better as far as selling quick. But it's pretty nice if you actually have someone come up and throw down like $1,000 on a kind of a high-end snake, and then you're like, the rest of the reptile show, you're like, I already made my $1,000 on this $1,000 snake. It doesn't really matter how many I sell and how quick they sell if you're making a couple high-end sales on some better snakes. All right, let's see. Odie says, I'll try to be here. All right. David Welch, do you sell on Morph Market or do you have your own website? I just sell on Morph Market pretty much exclusively. I don't really, I can't really keep that. I can't keep an inventory of snakes. It seems like as soon as I produce snakes, they sell almost, within hours sometimes of when I produce them. If I had like a whole inventory of a whole bunch of snakes that I just absolutely couldn't sell, and I was producing like thousands of snakes or something like that, I'd probably set up a website. But for me, just producing like, like 100 snakes a year, I don't really have my own website for that. Let's see, Isaac, I'm a new breeder focusing on super pastel. Yeah, that's a good way to go, super pastel. So yeah, so if you're actually working on super pastel, I would probably work in some more pattern enhancing genes like leopard or enchi or confusion or spot nose or something like that. Make some really amazing combinations. What salad dressing do you choose at a restaurant? Thousand Island blue cheese, Italian. I like the vinegar, like the red wine vinaigrette. This is kind of my dressing of choice. Kind of an off-topic question. You can ask me anything. Yeah, that's kind of I'm not really a big salad guy, but yeah, I usually like the vinaigrette, kind of the red colored dressings. Let's see. My Mojave genetic stripe weighs 850 grams and is a female. So yeah, so if you're looking at so if you're looking at kind of the pricing on ball pythons, if you're trying to sell one, so Mojave genetic stripe, I would consider the 850 grams to be a real positive as far as selling that. So for example, if you actually had a Mojave genetic stripe hatchling and you look up the price on that one, and say for example it's like $500 or something like that, and then you look at a snake that's 850 grams, really close to, it has a really good start to it, I would imagine you can get significantly more, especially for a bigger female. 850 grams, I would say sometimes you could actually double the price at 850 grams. Not a lot of bigger snakes. As a matter of fact, if you go over to Morph Market, it seems like recently, it seems like all the ones that are like 1,500 grams and above are commanding a higher price because everyone wants to buy it and breed it and make a quick return on their investment. So the bigger the female, the more you can get for it for sure. All right, let's see. Hamza, I have 3 ball pythons, 1 male, Mojave leopard pastel, 1 female, super pastel pinstripe, and 1 female super Mojave. I have a dwarf Burmese. I was thinking about making hybrids. So yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Yeah, the hybrid between the Burmese and the ball python, which is, I don't know, I think hybrids are pretty controversial. A lot of people are really against hybrids, and some people are kind of interested in doing it. As a matter of fact, I actually had my Australian Woma python here, which you can actually breed them with a ball python and make a hybrid that is half ball python, half Australian Woma. But the problem is trying to get people to actually buy into a project like that. But kind of the interesting thing with this is if you actually look at the prices of the Burmese ball python hybrids, I've seen those sell for thousands of dollars. So I don't know if you actually made some hybrids like that and they did sell for like, several $1,000s a piece, you could probably do pretty well. Although I think you pretty much have to time, like even if you had a dwarf Burmese, I would think potentially it could get bigger than it would actually be compatible with a ball python. So if you had a really big Burmese, I don't think it would actually breed with a ball python. You'd have to kind of maybe get like a small male Burmese, even if it was a dwarf, and try to breed it to like a really big female ball python in order to get it to work physically between the 2 different size snakes. Let's see. Can you turn up the gain? Turn up the gain. I don't think I actually can. I'm recording on my phone. I can get a little bit closer, maybe to my phone, maybe give you a little bit more volume. Yeah, I'm pretty low tech here. I have a really slow internet. I'm streaming at like 2 megabits per second through my phone line. Yeah, I'm doing a live stream on my phone, which is kind of crazy. Pretty low tech on the live streams here. All right, let's see. I have a spider leopard. That's a pretty awesome combination. Journey wise, do you have any advice on breeding Western hognoses? So Western hognoses, you have to kind of be careful because here, especially here in Colorado, the hognose is a native species, and they actually have limits on how many snakes you can keep and what you can breed as far as Western hognoses. And the other thing is a lot of people consider the hognoses to be rear fang venomous. So some places technically consider this species to be a venomous species. Some reptile shows will actually ban you from selling the Western hognose, which, some people say it's technically not a venomous species because it has like a really reactive saliva that can really kind of, a lot of people say a lot of people are allergic to the saliva, not technically venomous. So I'd really look at some of your local reptile shows and your rules and regulations before you jump into the hognose game. But it's a pretty interesting project, the hognose. All right, any breeding tips for a female that won't lock? Yeah, so I actually covered that in a video. As a matter of fact, just last week, I had it was like 12 tips on how to get a stubborn male to breed with a female. You might want to go back and check out that video. I had like 12 tips on how to get them to lock the male and the female. So yeah, it's kind of like that was actually titled like the stubborn male video, but actually it could be potentially like the stubborn female video too. All right, so we got about 20 minutes left. Doing pretty good on the questions, not so far behind. Of course, we have 47 people on. Usually we have like 80 or 90. Usually I'm like way behind on the questions. And I think it's because it's Easter. Everyone's like getting ready for the Easter festivities tomorrow. All right, BR Wildlife Studio. Thanks for all the info videos. My 720-gram champagne pastel male stopped eating December 4th, lost 100 grams. Yeah, so December, January, February, March. So yeah, some 720 grams could be coming up on the so-called 1,000-gram wall. Usually when you come up about 800 grams, sometimes you can hit that wall, then they'll absolutely refuse to feed. So yeah, so especially if it was like 820 and then dropped about 100, I say that's pretty normal. A lot of times you'll actually run up against that wall. Sometimes they can fast for months and months. Sometimes I've actually seen even 6 months or more when you come up against that wall. Sometimes it's kind of frustrating. Sometimes I'd say you can kind of tempt them back into eating with like a live mouse. You could try a live adult jumbo mouse to get them back on food. Have you ever done maternal incubation? I've been tempted to do maternal incubation where I let the female hatch out her own eggs. Although every now and then I actually see a YouTuber who tries it once in a while. Sometimes they're successful and sometimes they lose the entire clutch of eggs with maternal incubation. So I'm not really brave enough to risk losing a whole clutch of eggs with maternal incubation. So no, I've never really done it here in my collection. But I would say if you're doing like, if you actually are doing like snake breeding for kids or something like that, I would say, you know, it'd be kind of a neat project to have your kids watch the female snake incubate the eggs and sit on them for 2 months, which would be pretty wild. All right, OD Coffee. I like hybrids. Just got to keep your collection straight with the bloodlines. Yeah, so if you actually took a ball python and bred it with a Burmese python, I'd say there would be absolutely no doubt about those hybrids. You would definitely know they're definitely a bigger snake with the Burmese in them. Miss Kendra to you. Hey, what is going on? Thanks for being a channel member. I can see that in your name here. All right, let's see. Colton, yeah, smash that like button, subscribe. Yeah. Yeah, I usually don't ask that, but yeah, you can subscribe, hit that like button. All right, let's see. Thank you, Lord Hardwick. Let's see. BR Wildlife Studio. 8 March 31st, assuming breeding season is the reason. Yeah, so that's one thing I actually did this year is I had a whole bunch of females that were fasting for a long time. Some people say that the process of pairing your males and females will actually stimulate some of your stubborn females to go back on food. And sure enough, when I did that, I started pairing up some of my females that were fasting. A lot of them went back on food, which was pretty surprising. Normally, I won't pair those up if they're fasting, which is pretty wild. Let's see. I can't keep Eastern hognose. Yeah, so here in Colorado, we have a problem with the Western hognose. In Tennessee, interesting, huh? All right, let's see. I have an albino male. I'm trying to get him a female. Not sure what to go with. Thought about a normal more for the ones that have the pie, but what would you recommend for a breeder starter? So yeah, so if you have an albino male, probably what I would do is if you're just starting a ball pythons, I would buy an albino female to breed them. As a matter of fact, I'd probably do an albino female that's a visual albino that has some other genes. Maybe do like some dark genes, like some black pastel. If you actually work dark genes in with the albino, it gives you a really high white albino. And it can get a little bit frustrating. So if you actually, so for example, I know a lot of people, what they'll do with albinos is they'll shoot for the albino pieds. But the problem is if you bred an albino to a pied, you'd get all normal looking snakes, double hat for albino pieds, which can be kind of frustrating for someone new, just getting a whole bunch of normal looking offspring. So if you actually bred an albino to an albino, you'd get all albinos. And then if you added in like black pastel or like leopard or blackhead or even like a cinnamon or something like that, you could definitely tell the genes in the albino, which would be pretty awesome. And when you're selling the albinos, I think albinos are selling for, like $300 a pop. So with, you could do pretty good breeding them as far as making some money. And the albinos, I think, are one of the better sellers at some of the reptile shows. They sell really well, the visual albinos. Do you keep Bobby's shed skin and sell it? Actually, I do have one of Bobby's best sheds over here. I did an auction on one of Bobby's sheds before, and it didn't do really well. But kind of the interesting thing is I collected a whole bunch of sheds. I have this huge garbage bag full of all these sheds for my snake. I was thinking about maybe doing like Bobby's shed auction with the addition of all those other sheds on top of that, just as something different. I haven't really got time to actually sit down and kind of organize that yet. Have I ever done maternal incubation? No, I've never done maternal incubation. 420, get a double hat. Yes. You also have a cinnamon crystal. That's kind of an interesting combination. All right, Vaughn, I just recently bought a pied ball python from PetSmart. I'm worried that they didn't feed her. I don't know if I should feed her yet. What do you think? So yeah, so if you're buying a ball python from PetSmart, I think they only sell like hatchling ball pythons. If you can actually get it to eat a frozen thawed mouse, I would definitely try that. But I'm guessing probably like a really young hatchling at PetSmart, you probably want to start with like live mouse hoppers to start that off. And I would probably do like maybe 2 a week on a brand new hatchling. So usually they only sell really small hatchlings over there. So that's probably what I do. I'd probably do maybe like if you actually go back to like the live mouse hoppers, you only have to do like 6 or 7 of them, and then you can transition over to the frozen thawed mice. That's what I would do. Gene diversity in the hybrids. So I always wondered if you could actually take the genes from ball pythons, work it into a hybrid, and start like another whole ball python craze in a specific hybrid, working other genes into it, which would be pretty awesome. So if you can actually work like bamboo into like a ball python Burmese hybrid and have a really super huge bamboo. I don't know if that would actually work, but it'd be kind of interesting. Let's see. I bought my normal from PetSmart. If you go back, they will tell you when and how they fed them. Let's see. Yeah, so if you actually go to PetSmarts here in my local area, they're actually banned. They're actually prevented from feeding live rodents to any snakes. So that's usually the problem. And a lot of them won't recommend feeding a snake a live mouse, which is kind of crazy. As a matter of fact, if you actually buy a live mouse from PetSmart or Petco, and you tell them you're going to use it to feed your snakes, they won't actually sell you that mouse to feed to a snake. So they are absolutely against feeding live mice to snakes. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you get advice from some of those stores. If ball pythons didn't exist, what would you think would be the most popular type of snakes? So as far as looking, I don't know. So as far as looking at the genetic diversity of any species, I would say probably the one that comes closest to ball pythons is reticulated pythons. It has a lot of different genes in reticulated pythons. But the problem is the retics get really super big, which kind of keeps it from being the most popular kind of snake. I'd say probably maybe the king snakes and the corn snakes would probably be the most popular. Let's see. Header for 4 days. Yeah. So, can you explain the banana male and female, Adam? Yeah. So in the bananas and the coral glows, pretty much the bananas and the coral glows, a lot of people consider them to be exactly the same gene. You actually have male makers and female makers. And keep in mind when someone says they have a male maker or the female maker, it's only in the males that are male makers and female makers. So if you have a female and you breed it to something else, the females technically won't be male makers or female makers. And then if you actually have a male that's a male maker and you breed it to something else, so for example, here in my collection, I have a coral glow male maker that is a male. It gets a little bit confusing, but every time I breed that male maker male to something else, all the coral glow offspring are always males. So I've been breeding it again and again and again, year after year, and I have yet to get one single female coral glow from that banana, the coral glow male maker. And the male maker, it depends on the parent of where it actually comes from. So for example, if you take a male maker and you breed it to another snake, all the offspring come out as males and all the males are male makers. But if you have a female maker, you'll actually breed it to another snake, all the coral glows will come out females, and those females won't be male makers or female makers. As a matter of fact, I actually have a video on it. You'll have to watch that video. It gets really confusing. It's hard to explain in like 30 seconds because your head starts spinning. I've actually seen a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll put up like a whiteboard or something like that, and they'll start, drawing it and kind of graphing out the male makers and the female makers. It gets pretty confusing. Let's see. I'm working on a Super LC Black Magic Pied. Wow. Yeah. So the LC Black Magic is actually a gene. I'm pretty sure that gene is only over in the European version of Morph Market. There's no LC Black Magics over here in the United States. And the super form of the LC Black Magic is really super black. And if you actually added pi to it, it could potentially be similar to like a Panda Pied project, which would be kind of crazy. As a matter of fact, if you actually had like a Super LC Black Magic Pied and it looked like the Panda Pied, you could probably get like $5,000 a piece for those offspring, or maybe even more. As a matter of fact, when I first started in ball pythons, the Panda Pieds were selling for like $10,000 a piece. So potentially, if this actually comes out just the same as the Panda Pieds, which would be pretty awesome, you could get even more, especially if the LC Black Magic would be something like similar to the Panda Pieds without the genetic defects of like the kinking and the duck billing that you'd see in the Super Black Pastel. I think it could be worth a lot of money too, which would be pretty wild. All right, let's see. I have 3 balls, 2 females, 1 male. What should my next step be? So yeah, so that's a good start. 2 females and 1 male. Keep in mind, you can actually take 1 male and breed it up to 4 females. I'd say most people will take 1 male and breed it to 3 females. To really depends on what the genetics are in your male. So if you have a male with a lot of really good genes, I would probably buy at least one more female to pair with that male. That's what I would do. Maybe even two more females. All right, journey wise, what is the best place to sell ball pythons without having to ship? Definitely your local reptile shows. Let me tell you, I go to a local reptile show, I can unload some serious snakes super fast, and it's super easy because you're only dealing with someone for just a few minutes, and they buy a snake, and it's pretty much, you don't have to worry about, you know, trying to schedule the shipping and then payment plans and, you know, trying to, you know, deal with, you know, all the different questions from all the different customers. It can be pretty intense as far as, you know, selling a morph market, dealing with a lot of customers. So that's definitely the best place. Let's see. My female just laid today. Drew Farrell. Congratulations. Awesome. Laid 3 eggs, sat on them all day until recently she pushed one of the eggs out of her coils. She'll always be worried about that egg. So if you're doing maternal incubation, yeah, I would probably take that egg and put it back under the female. What I would actually do if you have an incubator, I would take those eggs and put them up in an incubator and try to dial in the temperature and the humidity for those. But yeah, if you're doing maternal incubation, I would probably see if you can get that egg back in under that female. All right, 6 minutes left on the 3-hour live stream. We pretty much caught up with most of the questions. Wow. All right. Continuation to my previous question. What would you pair with the LC Black Magic Pied? What I have. Yeah, so if you have an LC Black Magic Pied, I would try to produce the super LC Black Magic Pied. Yeah, so what you could potentially do is you can actually take that snake, breed it to something else. You would get LC Black Magic Het Pieds if you could actually prove that the super LC Black Magic Pied comes out looking exactly like the Panda Pied, and kind of get that whole project really excited, get a lot of people really excited about it. And if you could actually sell that the double visual for a lot of money, like thousands and thousands of dollars, and then that would actually kind of artificially increase the price of the LC Black Magic Het Pieds, because everyone would want to buy into it to make what you're actually making with the other thing. So it really depends on the visual appearance of what you're actually, the end result is for that double visual on that one. Sometimes people have some pretty good ideas as far as, you know, going down a project, you know, kind of like a road down this way. And sometimes it doesn't work out as good as they thought when they actually make the double visual. All right, I can tell I'm getting kind of tongue-tied after talking for 3 hours. I think the LC Black Magic is a tongue twister. All right, let's see. Working on setting up my incubator. Nice. How long will it take a female to ovulate after she stops eating? So it really depends on the follicle size of the female. It can really depend. It's kind of a sliding scale. Let's see. I only have a handful of snakes around a normal female, Mojave genetic striped female, Mystic Potion male. All right, let's see. Thank you so much for doing these live streams. They're really very helpful for a new breeder. Sure. Let's see. So you know that pairing for the 3 types of white snakes. So you have any yellow belly in your collection. If do what pairings in yellow belly this year. See you soon, Lord Hardwick. Thank you, Hamza. All right, we got 3 minutes left. We can do a few more questions. Let's see. I bet the Mystic Potion is cool. The Mystic Potion can really vary from one Mystic Potion to another. Let's see. I have a Super Orange Dream male and a Black Pastel female. What are other gene combos that look good for the Orange Dream? So Super Orange Dream. So yeah. So the Orange Dream is actually a brightening gene. What I would actually do if I had Super Orange Dream or Orange Dream, I would try to work in other brightening genes. You could actually do like Yellow Belly, Pastel. You could do what I would actually do is like an Enchi, like a calico spider Enchi or something like that, and then work some of the brightening genes on top of that. That would be pretty awesome. Some of the most amazing combinations I've seen are like the combination of spider and calico, and then you work other brightening genes on top of that. If you actually look up some of those over on Morph Market, you can see some pretty amazing combinations. Banana and albino, any thoughts? So what to work in with the albino and the banana? So the banana, I would actually probably work in some of the pattern enhancing genes, something like maybe like Super Pastel or Enchi or a leopard or spot nose or something like that. The albino, most people go with albino pieds. Pretty much the number one thing you can do with the albinos is to make the albino pieds. I really like the albinos with the dark genes, like especially if you do like a double dark with like a leopard blackhead or something like that. If you do the maybe like a blackhead, black pastel, you can make a really super high white albino, which is pretty wild. Luna, hey Chris, love your videos. Do you shave before every live stream? Yes, I do shave. Yes, I do. If I don't shave, I look pretty scruffy. It grows in really fast. Yeah, I do shave before every video. Can you do a video tutorial on how to ship snakes? I actually do have a video on how to ship snakes and all the different boxes and all the different things you can do shipping snakes. Little Supreme Games. In your experience, what morphs have you the strongest feeding response in Ball Python? So yeah, so I've noticed that bamboos, like the snake that I have around my neck, Bobby here, it seems like all the bamboos are really strong feeders as far as a feeding response. And it seems like a lot of your snakes that are really strong feeders can be the nippiest as hatchlings and juveniles, which is kind of crazy. I've actually had some really nippy bamboos. Sometimes they come flying out of the tub after those rodents, which is kind of crazy. And I'd say besides the bamboos, I've actually had, it seems like the clowns are really aggressive eaters. And in my experience, it seems like the pines are the least aggressive as far as a feeding response. I haven't really had a lot of pied hatchlings, but it seems like a lot of my adults are pretty picky, maybe live only feeders on a lot of my pieds. It seems like a lot of my double hets, my albino pied double hets, for whatever reason, those two hets together in a hatchling really increases. Seems like the aggression of the hatchling. I've been bit probably the most times from my double het albino pieds, and it seems like they have a really good feeding response in those too, which is kind of crazy. Have you ever seen a super calico or super sugar? Nope, I haven't seen that one. Let's see. Spiders eat well. It seemed like I did have a couple clutches of spiders, and they all did eat really well too. What is your ultimate favorite single trait morph? That would have to be the bamboo, like Bobby around my neck here. Spiders are excellent eaters. I'll agree with that. Yes. Pieds and clouds. I have heard with some people that pied hatchlings are really good eaters. But as adults, I find that they're kind of picky, which a lot of people with adult pieds seem to agree that they're really picky and tend to favor live only with a lot of your adult pieds, which is kind of crazy. Het red axanthic is a pig. So I don't work with het red axanthic, so I don't have a lot of experience with that one. So that is pretty much it. We just passed 3 hours and 2 minutes. Still 42 people on the stream, which is pretty amazing for the day before Easter. Tomorrow is Easter. I was like, why is nobody joining this? I was like, what's going on? And then we figured out, yeah, tomorrow is Easter. And here I've just been kind of cranking away. It seems like all the days kind of blur together here in my reptile room. So happy Easter, everyone. Thanks for joining the live. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I'll have another live stream, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We'll try to go another 3 hours tomorrow for Easter, which would be pretty awesome. So thanks for all your comments. Thanks for the super chats. I think I pretty much hit everyone's comments. If you have any more comments or questions, you can leave them tomorrow, and we'll do another live stream tomorrow. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next live stream tomorrow.